Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine across the vast OutKick network, including YouTube. We hope you'll subscribe to the channel while you're there. You can catch all the great shows throughout OutKick there and at OutKick.com. Like the post, share, all of it. We appreciate you, and the other hosts do as well. Chad, a big show today. John Ireland, the radio voice of the Los Angeles Lakers, will join us. That's coming up in 20 minutes on a game day where they can eliminate the Golden State Warriors. We will chat about that and much more going on with the Lakers. That's straight ahead. Bobby Carpenter and Clay Travis still to come throughout the show today as well. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Excited about today's lineup.
Yeah.
Excited about every day.
Yeah, but Bob Huggins is not being let go.
He's excited also.
But yet, are you excited that one of your favorite shows is going off the air?
I am excited
Ted
about
Lasso,
it
right?
because Ted Lasso has become borderline unwatchable in season 3. I teased this yesterday, but I want to get into it today. After now being completely caught up on the last season of Ted Lasso, and thank God it's the last season. This is a program that went from being very enjoyable and a great story in season 1 to almost unwatchable in season 3. And here is the reason why it has become unwatchable. Because it's as if the creators of the show tuned in to the outer recesses of Twitter, of Hollywood Twitter, and they looked at the complaints about a lack of LGBTQ representation and said, let's just lean into that in the final season. They went from a show that was a feel-good story about a character that was completely against it, that was out of his element, that was coaching a sport he knew nothing about, and was a good comedy where you felt good after every episode and did have a good message. And they turned it into what I could best describe as a weekly after-school special that is extremely cheesy. I don't like things that are forced. There are storylines on the show now in season 3 that are completely forced. It truly is like the one note that the creators received for season 3 was, we like what you're doing, but need more LGBTQ this season. Let's make sure to force that in there, whether it needs to be in there or not. Let's also force a storyline where one of the players is in a Twitter spat with the conservative Prime Minister of England for one episode for no reason at all. It is very clear when you can watch something and see an agenda behind it. And I see that all the time with Hollywood productions. There is a Hollywood agenda behind Ted Lasso. And I don't necessarily care if the end product is good. Here's what we got to get back to, and I'm consistent with this with everything. Let's be good and not be about saying something all the time. Make sure your entertainment product is good before you're sending a message out. The good is more important than whatever it is you have to say. And Ted Lasso's trying to say about 15 different things in the final season, and the one thing it's not saying is entertaining. It sucks. And I am forcefully watching it every week to make sure I can get to the end in hopes that it has some sort of good resolution. And I'm not optimistic, Hutton, right now because it looks like it's going to be terrible.
Well, and just tying in to, you've got the script versus real life and what's going on with Bob Huggins in West Virginia where he's not getting fired. We had the report earlier today where Pete Thamel is saying that, hey, Huggins, his salary is going to be reduced by $1 million per season. He's going to undergo sensitivity training, and he will receive what Thamel called, quote, a significant suspension. Well, the first two things are true. The university is reducing his salary from like $4.2 to $3.2 million per season. His contract is now year to year. He is going to be forced to attend sensitivity training. The money that he would have earned per season on the contract is going to foundations for LGBTQ+. And meanwhile, the significant suspension element of this is 3 games, Chad? Is that what we've learned since Thamel's report? 3 games?
Yeah, this is from E. Gordon Gee, the president of West Virginia. The suspension is going to be for 3 games. Everything else you laid out, Hutton, but That significant suspension is 3 games. That part of it shocks me. Look, I'm surprised that he is still employed. But when I saw a significant suspension, I'm thinking, okay, this is a way to placate special interest groups that are going to be after, quite frankly, West Virginia and Bob Huggins. And he opened the door for this. What he said was completely stupid, and it's inexcusable, and it's dumb. And this is on the flip side of what I'm talking about with Ted Lasso. He deserves to be penalized harshly for this. I'm surprised he's not fired, not saying he absolutely should be fired. But when I see significant suspension in what's being reported by Pete Thamel, I think it's more than 3 games. 3 games this last year, by the way, for West Virginia would have included games against Bowling Green, Mount St. Mary's, and Pittsburgh. That significant? I thought significant, Hutton, would be the entire non-conference slate, 12 to 15 games, maybe 20, and that would be an attempt to placate everyone to where the story would almost go away by the time he's back in coaching, and he'd miss a significant amount of time. But according to West Virginia, it's going to be 3 games. And to quote Pac-Man Jones, that's just how it is in West Virginia,
That's just how it is in West Virginia. So is this a sign that they're not going to, moving forward, people are going to point to athletic departments will point to what West Virginia did and say, hey, we don't have to act the way that other universities have in automatically removing a coach or removing a player? Is this similar to what we saw in reaction to Alabama this past basketball season? It's the opposite of what we saw Texas do with their basketball program, although Chris Beard is right back into coaching. So, I mean, maybe we should have expected this, maybe not. I'm surprised, like you are, though, that we didn't see the immediate reaction to the live radio interview where, I mean, he doubles down on it. He says it twice, and he's speaking directly to Xavier in doing that. That's the big surprise.
I thought
we didn't take the stance that he should be fired. We didn't want him automatically fired within hours. We thought that would be the case based on just the landscape of athletics. And that hasn't been the case.
I'm surprised. And not just athletics. I mean, I think any position of power. Like especially if you're in a position to influence others and you are the head of something. Well, Bob Huggins is the head of the basketball program. Depending on what you say, you can get elected for saying things like that. At West Virginia. Give me an example, what you're talking about.
What did Trump say before he got elected? Grab women by the what?
Yeah. Now, but again, we're talking apples and oranges.
But I mean,
Trump said this while he was mic'd up before an interview to someone else while the guy was laughing.
I know. And the media ran with it.
Yeah.
Point being,
the media, but that didn't stop the media from wanting him to be out of the election. And for that to happen, like this has been pretty mute, I think, in response to all this, right?
But the same media crews are ousting Tom Brenneman before he can get off the air calling a home run.
Exactly, and
that's why I say athletics and not the other landscapes.
Well, I think if a CEO of a company, of any company, went on an interview, went on NPR, and said Catholic bleeps, they would not be the CEO of that company any longer. Politics is different because any idiot can get elected, quite frankly, and they can't really vote you out. But I think if you're the head of a business or you're the head of a television network or a movie studio or almost any other major program or sports team in America, and you said that on a live interview, not once but twice, I'm having a hard time finding the institutions that would keep you employed.
But I think it's time and place.
Tom Brenneman's a great example.
Who it is. Dana White can get away with saying anything he wants to on a live interview. Press conferences. They've used this word in press conferences before by their fighters talking up pay-per-view sales. So I mean, there is another example of this where
Dana White can't get fired.
Brenneman's fired, but he's the head of a company.
Yeah, but he can't get fired. Like, you can get voted out if you're a publicly held shareholders can vote you out.
Vince McMahon is now with Endeavor.
But
same
again,
as Dana White.
Hutton, you're pointing to like the 2% of people
that are going to do it.
I'm
using examples where we normally don't see it, and West Virginia just did it.
Yeah,
with a 3-game suspension.
I think we're mostly agreeing. That's why I'm surprised that it's happened. I mean, you're surprised he wasn't fired, right?
Absolutely, and that's what sparked our conversation is across the athletics landscape, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I just don't even look at it as athletics, though. I think in any, I mean, I just got done talking about Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is responding to the fringe elements on Twitter that are pissed off at Ted Lasso for not featuring gay characters after 2 seasons. So what do? They turn their entire show into an after-school special featuring forced gay storylines on season 3.
Yeah, with no slurs.
That is what America has become. And if the head of Apple or the head of the Apple TV division or the head of Sony or the head of Warner Brothers went into an interview and said these Catholic homophobic slurs, I think they would be canceled and removed quickly. And I think almost any other program would do the same.
That's why West Virginia is the outlier. Back to the original question, though. Is this now something that we will see moving forward where universities will use West Virginia and their punishment as the example? What is going to be the backlash over the next 24 hours to this? Because in today's Hollywood, they're not making The Hangover.
Yeah.
And that was 10 years ago. That's not 30 years ago. And you could page a doctor in that using the same word that Bob Huggins just used.
I agree. And I think West Virginia is about as far away from Hollywood as you can get. And that's my point of why West Virginia is probably just different.
But in the athletics landscape, I'm curious where it goes from the media coverage.
I think that
because the athletics landscape has been forced to talk politics now for over a decade when people look for an escape.
Yeah,
and West Virginia is turning they're just looking back and saying, hey, we're going to fine them $1 million per season. I don't know how much time. He's 69 years old. I don't know how much he had left on his contract to begin with. That's the other. If it's year to year now, what does that mean? Was it a 10-year contract and he's now year to year? And honestly, what type of punishment is that, given the fact that he's still employed and going to his 17th season with the university? If it's year to year, they're bringing him back if they're bringing him back now.
It's important to note that, excuse me, it's important to note that what Twitter cares about and what people who protest things oftentimes care about, or people who want to boycott things care about, is different from what sports fans care about. I've heard from some West Virginia fans, they all love Bob Huggins. They love him.
He's a Hall of Fame coach.
And they still love him. So this to me is West Virginia saying, not that we don't care because they're doing something, but we don't care enough because the people who really matter to us don't really care. And they're not going to let this bother them if he continues to coach the team a certain way.
Well, that's
what they're saying.
Here's the other layer to it. I want to know what happened to the hosts.
That's a good. I thought all along
Huggins going to keep his job for saying the word, but then the host laid the foundation for this to happen. Get out of here with that.
So you brought up the Trump example.
Yeah,
Billy Bush was the only one to lose his job.
I know,
and he laughed off camera at one of his guests that he was about to have on the show, and he loses his gig. So is anything going to happen to them?
That's a question we asked in the real time though, because that's. Well, you're so pissed off at someone that you punish the other person that was in the room because the other person's Bob Huggins.
Yeah, I don't know where this all goes because I think that if you're Alabama as an example with Nate Oates, if you're entrenched enough and love someone enough, you can excuse and forgive almost anything. And you can come up with an excuse to do something that's very light to them.
Yes.
Based on anything that they've done. So I think in sports, maybe that is one of the last bastions where you can get away with that outside of other levels of entertainment and forgive whatever you want. But I still believe firmly that West Virginia it's probably one of the few programs we'd have gotten away with that. If he did that at Notre Dame, let's say, I think he's fired.
Or if he
regardless of his success.
Or if he talks about another program other than Xavier and Catholics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other part of this story.
It's a big part of it. Well, he's also being forced to donate a large chunk of money to Xavier University as part of this.
We've had a great NBA playoffs thus far, and the Lakers have been on fire. Really, they caught fire whenever they got healthy. But in the postseason, things really picked up when Dillon Brooks ran his mouth. And since then, they've won their series over Memphis. And now they have a 3-1 series lead over the Warriors, tipping off later this evening with a chance to close them out. The voice of the Lakers, John Ireland, he joins us next on Hot Mic. recently retiring. Your locker was very close to Tom's locker,
right
wasn't
next
it?
to 12, yeah.
What was that like?
Man, it was cool, man. He's a funny dude, man. He's a nice guy. Joke with him every day. You know, he's a good dude, man. He's probably one of the only dudes that I know that walk around in a bathrobe in the locker room, bro. So
You go up against him in practice all the time. Could you see that big jump coming from Daniel Jones going into this season?
Man, when I first played against Daniel, coming in last year and seeing him work, man, I knew, the talent that he had. It was just one of those things where, you always hear the saying, God's timing is always right. It was just one of those moments where you knew eventually it was going to click and everything was going to work out, not just for him, but for us as a team. And I'm just so happy for him.
Which video game are you most proud of making the cover for?
Oh, definitely Madden, yeah. Like I remember I come from a big family. My mom had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and a lot of cousins, 30-some cousins, and and I remember one of the younger ones was like, "Man, you're on Madden, you're really good," and I was like, "Cuz, like, I was the high school #1 player in the country.
Yeah,
I broke every record at Alabama, All-American. I get the pros. I'd won the MVP already.
Yeah.
Been to the Super Bowl, won the MVP. He's like, now because of man, now you're cool. I was like, oh, okay.
You had done a few things.
Yeah. Now I'm good. Okay, all right. Well, that's how it works in y'all's minds.
And I remember when I first started working in the morning news. Shout out to Drew Kaliski, super producer for NFL Today. He was just talking about season. How you feeling? You ready to go? Are you excited? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like awkwardly hesitating to ask me a question. And I'm like, what's up, man? Speak your piece. And he's like, do you know what's going on in the NFL? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you know who plays for what teams and who's been traded where? I'm like, yeah, bro, what do you think? I'm living under a rock? And this is my job. I'm studying just like anything else.
6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hunt and Withrow for Hot Mike. We say hello to John Ireland, the voice of the Los Angeles Lakers. John, great to have you on the show, man. And, man, the Lakers here, based on what I saw in the regular season to the postseason, I know they got healthy, but what a run they're on.
Well, Jonathan, the big reason is the trade deadline. They basically blew up the team at the trade deadline. That hardly ever works right away. But we have LeBron and AD, and when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and you put them around the right other people, you can kind of get lightning in a bottle, and that's what they've got now. Although I got to tell you guys that I'm in the minority, at least out here on the West Coast. I don't think this series is over. I'm not going to believe that the Warriors are dead until – you guys remember the Wizard of Oz in that movie where the house lands on top of the witch and the guys come out and give her an actual death certificate? Until I see the death certificate on the Warriors, I'm not going to relax. But the Lakers look good. They're up 3-1, and we've got Game 4 here in San Francisco, or Game 5 here in San Francisco tonight.
There are some things that are just unexplainable in sports. Chad and I had a discussion about the yips in baseball yesterday. But with Anthony Davis, the hot one night, cold the next, or the passive play the next, I should say. What is that? Can you explain the reasoning for why we see that back and forth? And I know in this series it's been a lot better than the previous one.
Yeah, I can try. What I think happens, especially in a playoff series, because if you look at AD during the season, he was more consistent. But in a playoff series, what will happen, and if you're following this stuff, guys, you'll notice that the odd-numbered games have been the ones that he's gone off. And the even-numbered games have been the ones where he's struggled. What I think happens is, like, let's say Game 1. He comes out, and you can't believe that a guy that's 6'11" can do the stuff that he does. I'm not sure if this is common knowledge, but I'll just tell this story for your audience. When he was a sophomore in high school in Chicago, he was 6'1". He grew 10 inches between his sophomore year of high school and his freshman year at Kentucky. So AD grew up a guard. So you throw him the ball, all of a sudden you see this guy getting rebounds and bringing the ball down the court and dribbling behind his back and switching on to guards. And, you know, he can guard all 5 positions. He's kind of a unicorn in that way. So you'll play him in Game 1. He'll come out. He'll put up huge numbers. Then the other team goes back and looks at the tape and they say, okay, we can't let him do A, B, and C. And they make their whole defensive game plan around AD. So his numbers go way down. And then the Lakers adjust back in Game 3 and he goes back up. So, Jonathan, that's the best example I can give you. If Shaq was on this call with us, he would say that shouldn't happen. Great players adjust to whatever the other team does to him, blah, blah, blah. But that's what I think is happening to AD offensively. Now, defensively, guys, he's controlling every game. That's the thing that he doesn't get credit for. You know, he has more blocks in this postseason than 3 of the teams that are still left. And he controls the paint every single game. And so defensively, he blocks 4 or 5 shots every game and alters 7 or 8 more. So that's the thing that he probably doesn't get enough credit for, is that defensively he might be the best defender in the league.
LA Ireland is where you can find John Ireland, the voice of the Lakers, on social.
How big of a gift package will the Lakers players be giving Dylan Brooks if they go on to win an NBA title based on the motivation that he provided after Game 1 of that series?
Yeah, I didn't get that one, Chad. I thought that, you know, Dylan Brooks says he likes to poke bears. But, I mean, you guys have been doing this for a while. You know that normally when a guy does that, he has the game to back it up. Dylan Brooks was just running his mouth without the game to back it up. And I thought, well, if he goes out and tries to shoot a lot, that's good for the Lakers. If he goes and tries to take LeBron one-on-one, that's good for the Lakers. It just surprised me that that's the spot he picked, and that's the guy he picked to kind of poke. But it looks like it's going to have long-term ramifications for him. I guess the Grizzlies have said they're not going to bring him back. It'll probably cost him a little money when he goes to his next team. But it surprised me. LeBron said that he really doesn't get into those games and it doesn't matter. But trust me, LeBron's a basketball savant. He hears everything and uses everything he can as a motivator. So I think I think it mattered a little in that Memphis series.
Well, and I'm curious, like, as you're flying back to L.A. from Memphis after all these comments, did you know the series was done at that point? That it wasn't just LeBron that woke up. Like, the team woke up and just beat the crap out of them.
Right. Well, one thing, Jonathan, about that series that I think opened the eyes of a lot of people nationally is that in 6 games, we had 5 different leading scorers. One game it was Austin Reeves. One game it was Rui Hachimura. One game it was D'Angelo Russell. One game it was LeBron, and then the other game was AD. And so all of a sudden, you look at the Lakers, and before the trade deadline, you basically just had to guard LeBron and AD, and that's it, and not worry about anybody else. Now we've got some other guys you need to worry about. And if you leave Hachimura wide open, if you leave Russell wide open, if you leave Reeves wide open, these guys can hurt you. It kind of reminds me, you guys are a little younger than me, but it kind of reminds me of the Shaq and Kobe years, where all of a sudden people were saying, well, how are the Lakers winning the title every year with Rick Fox and Derek Fisher and Robert Horry? None of those guys are all-stars. Well, they were wide open, because Shaq and Kobe got double-teamed. And so you're seeing a repeat of that now. LeBron and AD get double-teamed. Guys like Reeves, Hachimura, and Russell, all 3 who weren't playing very much before the trade deadline. Well, Russell and Hachimura weren't even on our team. Now they are. And now when those guys are open, they're making a big difference.
And most recently, Lonnie Walker steps up in a fourth quarter. Another example, if you're going to go on a championship run, it's going to take role players like that stepping up, and that's what we saw in the latest game.
Well, and the great thing about him, Chad, is he never changed from the time he was starting earlier in the season. Then he got hurt, and so he fell out of the rotation. But the Lakers have a crew of guys that they call the Stay Ready crew. This is something Darvin Ham had brought with him for when he was a player. And basically, so we get sent, the guys that are in the travel party like me, we get sent agendas for every trip. So right now we're in San Francisco. And so the agenda will say, okay, if you played more than 30 minutes the night before, we want you to rest. Stay Ready crew, your bus leaves at 2:00. And so these guys that call themselves the Stay Ready crew, one of which is Lonnie Walker, have been going to all these games and practicing, for 2 hours before the game starts. And that guy's body language never changed. His attitude never changed. His demeanor never changed. And we interviewed him after the game the other night. And I said, well, didn't you get frustrated when you weren't getting your number called, when you weren't playing? And he said, I don't know why, but I knew one day they'd call my name. And my whole job was just to stay ready. So he's a great series. He's only 24, only went to college for 1 year, kind of got lost in the system in San Antonio. And I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if Lonnie plays a lot tonight, just based on what he did the other night. I think I could see him playing 20-plus minutes tonight.
John Ireland with us, the voice of the Lakers for their radio broadcast team. So not to get ahead of ourselves here, John, I know you think the Warriors extend the series or have a great chance to.
Yeah.
But we won't have the chance to chat with you probably until the Lakers advance, if they do. Better matchup for them, Denver or Phoenix?
Probably. Their answer, Jonathan, would be we'll take whoever we get.
Right.
They wouldn't answer that question just because they don't want to give the other team any bulletin board material. My guess would be they'd rather play Denver. Phoenix has kind of had our number. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are 2 guys we don't have a lot of matchups for, but AD can give Jokic trouble. AD is so good defensively that I think he can give Jokic a real battle, which would turn the game into Jamal Murray and Michael Porter against LeBron, and I think our chances are a little better. But that's just my opinion. The coaching staff might give you a different one. LeBron doesn't really get scared of anybody, but Booker and Durant have the ability to take a game over by themselves. So does Jokic. But at least in the case of Jokic, we have somebody that matches up with them defensively. Does that answer your question, or did I kind of duck it?
I like the answer because I think Denver, as the 1 seed, I don't know. They should feel pressure based on their roster. I don't know if they do because I'm focused more on this series, and I was focused more on previous series against the Kings and the Grizzlies than I was Denver. And I think based on the pressure, when you're facing L.A., I think many people think the Nuggets won't live up to it.
Well, the other thing is that we played them the year we won the title in the bubble. We played them in the Western Conference Finals, and it's a lot of the same guys.
Yeah.
Strangely, KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, was on our team that year, and now he's starting for them. But they know KCP, and they know Denver because they played him in those finals, and they beat him in 5 games. The series was closer than that. Anthony Davis hit a 3 when they were down 2 at the buzzer in one of those games, and it kind of broke the back of the Nuggets. But I think it would be a good series. Strangely, guys, the Lakers have gone on this run, and they won't have home court at any point in the playoffs. They have the fewest amount of wins left of the 8 teams that are left. We only won 43 games. Even the Heat, if we play the Heat in the finals, they're the 8 seed and we're the 7 seed, but they base that on number of wins, and they won 44 games and we won 43. So if we're going to win it, we've got to do it without home court advantage. And they beat Denver twice during the season. So I think they have a good feel for what the Nuggets would bring. But Darvin Ham has a way of just beating these guys over the head to stay humble in victory. That's a phrase of his that he throws around a lot. So if he heard them, well, let's put it this way, Jonathan. If you asked the question you asked me to one of the Laker players and they answered it, they would get their hand slapped. They wouldn't like it that they were talking about a team that we haven't actually earned the right to play yet. But since we're in sports radio, it's fun for us to kick it around. Just personally, I think they match up better against Denver, but who knows? And they're not going to have home court whether we play the Suns or the Nuggets. So neither one of those series would be easy.
John, I'm probably in the minority here, but I've always preferred the NBA for having fewer big upsets in the playoffs as opposed to the NHL, where it is wide open once you get into the playoffs.
Right.
You've seen a lot fewer 8 seeds over 1 seeds, as an example, in the NBA playoffs. But now we have a year where there's a very real possibility we will see an 8 seed take on a 7 seed in the NBA Finals with the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers. What does that say for this season in the NBA, and is that a good thing overall?
It's not, Chad, and here's why. I think it says that the regular season has become less important. All of these teams load manage. Both LeBron and AD missed a ton of games this year that if they would have been playoff games, I think they might have played in. And every team's doing that. Jimmy Butler sat a ton of games this year. You look at the Warriors, Clay, Steph, Draymond, especially Wiggins, all sat a ton of games. So then I think the end result is what you phrased in your question. We got these 7 seeds and 8 seeds that are playing like 1 and 2 seeds. And you say, how is that possible? Well, because they didn't care in the regular season to play guys that were banged up. We didn't play AD in second games of back-to-backs until the very end of the year. Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers play across town from us. They load manage almost to a fault. I mean, they'll sit guys if they come in and say, I'm tired. And I think the NBA, I've worked with the NBA for more than 25 years. I think the NBA knows it. I think you're going to see them start to deal with it in subtle ways. Next year, they're already talking about not letting players win year-end awards. The All-NBA teams come out today, and you're going to have to play, I think they settled on 58 games if you want to be a member of an All-NBA team. And the reason that matters, like you might be saying if you're out there listening, well, these players don't care about awards. They all make $40 million a year. Let me use Jaylen Brown as an example. If Jaylen Brown makes an All-NBA team today, and I think he will, I think he'll be third-team All-NBA, but I could be wrong. He's eligible to make like $70 million more in his next contract. It means something to him. So I think until the NBA gets ahead of this load management thing, Chad, you're going to see more of what you outlined in your question. More 7 seeds, more 8 seeds, more teams like that showing up in the playoffs, and you'll say, how did the 8 seed just knock out the 1? Well, it's because they didn't play anybody during the regular season. They sat on that wasn't their team. That was the Heat team you saw for most of the season. We're resting guys to get ready for this. And now they're healthy, and now they're showing teams what they can do. So I think that's the answer to your question.
Well, that's a terrific point. John Ireland is the radio voice of the Los Angeles Lakers on with us right now on Hot Mic. Is there a palpable buzz around Bronny James staying in L.A. to play at USC with the possibility of teaming up with his dad with the Lakers at some point?
I don't think people have put those dots together yet. But
Oh, we just lost his connection, I think. He just got
I think
zapped
he was trying to do something with
his
with
headphones.
his Zoom and then knocked himself off.
I think we definitely know that there's a buzz with USC versus UCLA. And by the way, John went to UCLA. That's the other that's the other thing too, is if you're talking college hoops, he's choosing USC. John, you got us back?
yeah, sorry about that.
It's all
guys.
good. It's all good. So no,
Yeah, that was Raymond Ritter, the PR director for the Warriors, calling me, and I tried to hang up on him, but instead I hung up on you. That just you got to be smarter than the iPad, and I'm not.
It's all
Very
good.
sorry.
We're honored you hung up on him, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, he's the best PR guy in the league. So
We're even more honored now.
He'll
Thank
forgive
you.
me.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll forgive me. But you asked me about Bronny James. The excitement is that you're going to be able to next. LA is a star-driven town. You guys know that. I know you've both been out here. So if you've got stars on your team, people go see you play. USC plays in the state-of-the-art arena called the Galen Center, right off the freeway on the USC campus. And so now all of a sudden, people are going to go to USC basketball games when everybody has only gone to USC football games over the years. And Dennis Rodman's son, DJ, announced he's going to go to USC next year too. So it gives people another thing to watch in LA. I don't think they've connected the dots that you asked me about, Chad, that LeBron is going to necessarily play with Bronny on the Lakers. Bronny would probably get drafted before the Lakers had a pick. But LeBron has said, don't put the cart ahead of the horse. Let his son go to college. I mean, he's very proud that his son is the first person in the James family to actually go to school. LeBron didn't go to college. Savannah, his wife, didn't go. LeBron's mom, Gloria, didn't go. So they're excited that Bronny is actually going to be the first guy to go to college in their family. And I think he's only going for a year, but let's see how the year goes. He could stay 2, and by that time, LeBron may be ready to hang it up. You know, LeBron's still the best player on our team, and he's 38 years old, so maybe he'll play till he's 45. Who knows? But to answer your question, I don't think people are connecting Bronny and LeBron on the Lakers as much as they are, oh, Bronny's going to be at USC next year. It gives us something else to do.
John, will you leave us with a great Kobe story? You took over, I believe, in 2011, 2012 as the radio voice?
Yeah, I have, Jonathan, my answer to that would be, how long do you have?
Okay.
He's my favorite player that I've ever covered. I started with the Lakers his first year. But here's one that I think, since I see you have the old Smoky back in the background, and then you probably have some drinks open somewhere in that building. One year I was a sideline reporter that year, and I had to stay late. We had locked up a playoff series in Houston. It was a Sunday afternoon game. And I came back to the hotel after the game, and the team had already gone back to the hotel because I was standing there, doing live shots. And I walk into the bar. It was one of those hotel bars that's right in the middle of the lobby. And Kobe motions me over to where he is. And he says, "Hey, John, do you want a beer?" And I said, "Kobe, you don't need to buy me a beer." And he has this smirk on his face, and he points down at his feet. And at his feet, I'm not exaggerating, boys, I counted them, are 18 opened beers. So bottles of beer that are open, but you can tell they're full. And I'm like, why would Kobe go into a bar and buy 18 full beers and put them on the floor? And while I'm standing there, some fan walks up to him and goes, "Hey, Kobe, you're my favorite player. I've always wanted to buy you a beer," and hands him a full open beer. And then I realized what was going on, that everywhere he went, people were so touched by him that they felt like they had to do something. So they would buy him beers. And he said, "I'll never drink all these. Give these all to the TV crew." So he was living a different life than all the rest of us. Everywhere he went, people were like, "Oh my God, that's Kobe Bryant. I've got to say so." Here's another quick one. One time I was walking with him through a mall in Minnesota, and some girl recognized him from behind the checkout counter and sprints out of the store into the mall where we're walking and takes a full header, lands on her nose, bloody mouth. Kobe and I walk over to her and go, "Are you okay?" And she goes, Yeah. I just always wanted a picture with Kobe Bryant." And I said, "Well, do you want to clean up and get the blood off your face before I take it?" She goes, No, it'll make for a great story. So somewhere out there's a girl with a bloody face in a mall with a picture with Kobe that I took. But those are just 2 of about 200 stories I have for Kobe.
Man,
incredible.
Yeah, and you're working for an organization that's legendary, as you well know. I'm sure you soak that in every time, but that's really cool. And John, it's very cool of you to join us on a game day.
Great
too.
stuff. And John, my vow to you is that if you ever visit us here in Nashville, we will have 18 open beers, courtesy of Yeehaw, right in front of you, waiting on you when you come down here. Anytime.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. Shout out to my friend John Cochran, who used to work for Old Smoky Moonshine and sent me a case of it in my it's in my garage, and I have a party coming up. It's going to be a moonshine party, and we're basically having the party simply to empty the case of moonshine. So I see that sign behind you guys. You guys are in good hands.
It's right over here too, the open bar.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
John, thank you for the time, man, and hopefully we can catch up as the playoffs progress, because this has been a real treat.
Yes, anytime, boys. And again, apologies for hanging up on you. I meant to hang up on the Warriors. So maybe we can do that tonight.
Hey, man, you called back. That's what we will remember. You called back.
You got it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, John.
John Ireland there.
He was terrific.
So the great Chick Hearn, and just thinking about, like, sitting in the seat, and being the voice of the Los Angeles Lakers.
If we get him back on, Hutton, the one question that I couldn't get to today that I want to ask about is if he watches Winning Time on HBO. And the Lakers organization thoughts on that show, because I have a feeling that they sort of hate watch it but love it, similar to Fox employees with the show Succession, that they know it's about them in a way, but they kind of hate watch it and love it at the same time.
And also, like,
that's the feeling I get in the Fox building
within the White House.
I bet it's the same for Winning Time.
House of Cards within the White House. Remember, Obama would say, like, it's more accurate than what people actually think based on some inside knowledge and the way they write that script.
But the people that are at least outwardly that are the angriest about the depiction are Chick Hearn's family, which John Ireland would know a lot about, and Jerry West's family, and Jerry West himself, about those being the most inaccurate depictions on the show. Got to get into that with them at some point, and I'm excited about Winning Time Season 2. I love it.
When does that tip
great
off?
Entertainment. This summer at some point.
Okay.
Pretty
so after
soon.
the postseason.
I think it's right around the NBA Finals.
Okay,
I think it comes back in
a couple
June.
months away.
Yeah.
At this pace.
We've got until like 4th of July for it to come out. It's going to be great.
Coming up when we come back, primary complaint on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Bobby Carpenter will join us coming up in about 30 minutes. Clay Travis in roughly an hour and a half. Always a great Wednesday show. Glad you're with us across the OutKick Network for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Every Wednesday, Chad, we air our top grievance of the week. We've done this for, going on 13 years now.
Many a moon we have done this.
We do it again today. It's time for primary complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings. It's time for Hot Mike's primary complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, I don't hate the fact that I have to verify I'm human, especially if the AI technology is so great that they can pretend to be me online. But with all the technology to prove that, we still have CAPTCHA, where you have to choose the squares, for instance, that feature a crosswalk. Click all squares with a crosswalk, which I've done, and I took a screenshot of. Chad, just for those listening, do you see any other squares where you would click for crosswalk possibilities here?
No,
Okay.
not in this picture that you're showing. This is also one of the more confusing mosaics I've ever seen on one of these questionnaires.
So I hit verify, and I was denied. I was apparently not human, so they had me do this again. Please click on any square that features cars. And so on purpose, I click on 3 instead of 4 because at the bottom middle, there's clearly 2 cars in the photo. I hit verify, and I get in. So apparently AI, can pretend to be me and not know which all squares are cars. And it's just a big waste of time. And all I wanted to do was simply try to purchase something for Duke and Melissa Turnbow. Shout out to them, who have been great to me. That's my primary complaint.
My primary complaint, I like to expand my horizons. I like to learn new things. So I'm in New York City this past weekend. Good job, Hutton and Charlie and Davey and everyone in studio for filling in while I was out and doing a great job. I learned about a maitre d' tip at a restaurant.
Oh, yes.
I've seen these before. Typically, they're reserved for huge parties, that you'll have a maitre d' tip if you're with a big group and you go to a nice restaurant. It was a party of 2, me and my wife, at an Italian restaurant, in a restaurant that on Thursday night in the theater district had 3 other tables in the whole place. That was it. The maitre d's work was I made a reservation online that he had nothing to do with. I walked in, very friendly gentleman, asked how we were doing, who we were, told him we had a reservation, said my last name was Withrow. They sat me down. He was very pleasant. That was it. That was the extent of our entire interaction. So then I get the bill at the end of the night, and I see all the food and drink that we consumed. I see the spot for the traditional tip for the waiter and the staff. Then I see a separate spot for maitre d' tip. I didn't Google it. I just decided to say, I guess $10 is okay. Sure enough, $10 to $15 for a party of 2 is an acceptable maitre d' tip. I want to learn about these things, though, when the maitre d' does a little bit more work to earn that tip, as opposed to what went down in New York City last Thursday night. This is my primary complaint.
I'm so uncultured, I haven't heard maitre d' until today, Chad, so.
I haven't heard it much.
What?
You're not
You've
that
never
far
heard of
behind
that,
me.
Dave?
No.
It's very rare that I've seen it, though.
My goodness.
I don't know. I have to do some research. There you go. All right. First I was thinking, like, you're going to go into this and it's going to be like, it's like the tip's like $100. Like, this just means no concept to me. But anyway, guys, my primary complaint has to do with the current writer's strike for the Writers Guild of America or whatever the hell they call themselves. So my biggest thing is they've already announced that Stranger Things Season 5 will be postponed because of this. And I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, I had to wait 3 years just because of COVID to finally get Season 4. So now this on top of that wait just extends this more. And, like, we're dealing with kids that started when they were probably around 12. So they're going to be like 23 by the time this happens. And the fact they're trying to make it to where they all stay within high school, it doesn't make sense. I'm battling through it. I mean, it's times like these where I often just say to myself, Davey, God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So I'm going to power through. We're going to make it, but it is frustrating. Hopefully we get through this. I don't know. I just don't want to repeat of 2007. That was just too long on that writer's strike.
I hate the writer's strike. I'm with Davey on this. It bothers me. Another thing that I didn't even think about, I listened to a podcast with Bill Hader, star of Barry, where he talks with a podcaster every week about the latest episode of the final season. Bill Hader has stopped going on the podcast to show unity with his writers on it, that he's not even going to talk about it anymore. And I'm thinking, just another thing that the writer's strike has robbed me of.
I think, I know I was shocked. I was shocked at how many shows have writers. The View. They went on and discussed that they no longer have writers, and they're going to be now thinking for themselves instead of reading off a teleprompter.
Well, on top of that,
one thing I'm not going to do is read off a teleprompter on this show.
Yeah, thankfully we're not affected by the writer's strike.
It doesn't hurt us, but just to give
I'm going to
more
have someone else tell me what to say.
Yeah.
more insight, it's not just like, oh, they write the script, they're done. Like they're in production, and like the script's already written, but they'll obviously make tweaks and go here and there and change it. And so because of that, they're just shutting down production completely.
But don't you hire personalities to have them, like on that show, The View? I just don't understand why they're.
Yeah, you just hire them to. I think
for those who don't know, we have writers, and from here on out, we don't know what we're doing.
Here, I'm being so silly. I thought you hired talent to be talent.
Yeah.
Not have someone feeding them lines the entire time. Crazy world that I grew up in. There was another show, though, Davey, where they stopped because rewrites are a part of it. They've written the season and they won't air it because the creator said, no, we rewrite the episodes as they go. And now we can't because of the writer's strike.
It's insane.
They're taking everything from us, Hutton. Everything.
Davey is on a dating app, and we need to send him to a restaurant with a maitre d'. Headlines next, including the NFL schedule release.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Just like that, the second hour is here for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. You can also go online, streaming live every single day and on demand for all of our shows, the YouTube page. Type in OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe, share, and let everyone know that we're available there each and every day. OutKick.com as well as where you can find our streaming.
Lively chat today in the YouTube chat, so continue to chat it up. With me,
Chat
with Chad every day on YouTube, and smash that like button, as people are doing right now.
Chad, I feel like the major conferences could do exactly what the NFL is doing with their schedule release, and they choose not to. And I realize, like, some of these games, the NFL, fans can go online prior to tomorrow, prior to this week, and see the home and away schedule. And yes, in college football, you know the third Saturday in October will feature Alabama, Tennessee. Or you know the Iron Bowl is going to be on Thanksgiving weekend, right? But the tease of the other games and the kickoff times is what's missing, I think, from the college football drama. And the NFL has made drama into their off-season schedule. I mean, really, the only month they take off is the month of June and a little bit of July around July 4th. Everything else is a factory for pushing drama, intrigue, and hope for every single fan base.
Let me jump in, though, on this, because it'll never work with college football to that extent, because one of the reasons is what you outlined. People know about what time of the year they're playing conference foes, but also because the way the structure of the schedule is made by individual schools, where they schedule 7-10 years out in advance, and they know who they're playing and when.
Yeah.
Now, if we go to what I think we're going to go to,
right,
a Power 5 system with a central governing body that creates a schedule, now we have a made-for-TV event. When Alabama fans are finding out who they're playing from the Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC, whoever, for the first time. If you unveil it one by one and you see Alabama taking on UCLA in the Rose Bowl in late September, as an example, now that is a big reveal. And I do think one day we're going to get there when this scheduling model blows up.
And trust me, we're going to get to the London games and some other things. But tomorrow, when the full schedule's released and they call the coaches or general managers on speakerphone, the coaches are sitting there jotting it down. This is right before the release. And they get into it on the phone. So we're going to go back-to-back trips to the East Coast, or we have a road game, and then we're going to London. And speaking of London, the 2023 NFL London games have been announced. At least these are on purpose. October 1st, Falcons and Jaguars. You can see a lot of Jacksonville in London. That first one's at Wembley. The second one's at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And the Baltimore Ravens and Tennessee Titans will face off in the middle of October, October 15th, in a game that kicks off at 2:30. But, Chad, the element of the home games, Ravens-Titans was a massive game in this rivalry. It's now going to be played overseas. And Jacksonville's always going to be a big part of this. But the London games, they're only going to increase those. Those sell out immediately. And for the fervor of what NFL fans want with their schedule and how they form, I mean, weddings are planned around weekends where you have, my favorite college team is in town, my favorite NFL team is in town, we can't do the wedding on this weekend, right? Or is there a bye week that coincides with an off week in college football? Your schedule's set for the fall based on the release for tomorrow because you know what your college teams are doing. You also have games in Germany. Frankfurt is hosting Dolphins and Chiefs. That's a massive game. This tells you the importance of Germany and being back there for a regular season game like they sit with Brady a year ago. They're sending Brady a year ago, and now they're sending Mahomes and the Dolphins with presumably a healthy Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, you couldn't trot out, Falcons, Panthers for the return to Germany. It had to be something bigger than that, and that's what they're giving them. They're giving them the biggest.
But last year they gave them Brady.
Yeah, now they're giving them Mahomes.
Yeah, and then meanwhile London's getting Jacksonville.
Yeah. I think the understanding is London's had a lot more of this, so they can go down the pecking order a bit.
And they've always had
They're still trying to go big with Germany.
Colts and Patriots will play in Week 10. This game is in November overseas. So you've got a lot of – and the teams, by the way, have the option on these games. When they fly back, they can choose to take their bye week the week after. Now, that won't be confirmed until tomorrow. But several teams last year played games in London and then played back in the States the very next week because the games were so early in their schedule. And as far as jet lag, all of that is real, having traveled with teams. And it's cush, it's great traveling on these Virgin Airline flights, double-deckers. But it's just a different time zone switch that it's very hard to plan for, and then you're right back into your weekly regiment after, the mind freeze of trying to land and pretend that it's 6 a.m. in, the most of the country, and you're getting ready to go to work when it feels like it's 1 a.m. because, well, technically that's your body clock. And that's how you try to trick your mind into it, and then you reverse it when you come back. And you're landing late Monday, you're going to get treatment, day off on Tuesday. And in many cases, last year we saw teams are right back to practice on Wednesday. Black Friday football for Amazon. They paid $1 billion and then said, hey, you know what? Let's pay more. Let's make a must-see game on a day that we can make our own holiday. Amazon sells everything. They have cornered the market. And now they want to own the only product on Black Friday for sports that people are going to tune in for and subscribe for that matter. Aaron Rodgers against who? Against Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins late in the year. This is right after Thanksgiving, of course, on Black Friday for Amazon. And this is a massive divisional game on the schedule for playoff seeding potential. Still a month to go after this, but the head-to-head tiebreakers matter. And in a division with the Buffalo Bills, that is a huge game on Black Friday for Amazon. That's why the NFL is making sure that they take care of Amazon this year, because at least on paper last year, it looked good. And then how much ridicule did they get week after week after week for their primetime games on Thursday Night Football? Al Michaels was even joking about it. He's even taking shots about it with Kirk Herbstreit. This is an element that I look at and say, well, the NFL is taking care of Amazon now because of the $1 billion paycheck.
They're also taking care of all of us because this is a big thing for people that have nothing to do on Black Friday. If you're a sports fan, you now have a lot more to pay attention to on Black Friday with this game.
Watch football on a holiday like every other holiday in the fall.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, it's college football on Black Friday for the most part, but you get games that aren't.
Right, yeah.
Nebraska and Iowa play every Black Friday, as an example. Arkansas and Missouri play. Jets, Dolphins, bit broader of an appeal than those games. And I'm a huge college football guy, but an Egg Bowl is Thanksgiving night. That's a different one. So,
but I'm saying that weekend. It's a college football weekend.
It's a huge weekend for college football, but I'm saying Black Friday specifically, not the best slate of games in college football. Now you're going to put a big NFL game right smack dab in the middle of that day. That's big time.
Well, and then the ratings on Thanksgiving Day for the NFL are massive no matter what games they're putting on there because it's Dallas. And that's been the Detroit's going. I'm intrigued about who they pair with Detroit now because Detroit's supposed to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Christmas Day is another day that the NFL's owning. It used to be like the unofficial tip-off to the season after the official tip-off to the season for the NBA. That's no more. Now it's the NFL, and they're putting Monday night. Any chance they get, they're going to have Christmas Day games, and we're going to see Monday afternoon on Fox, Giants and Eagles on Christmas Day.
This was one of the more brilliant moves by the NFL because NBA on Christmas Day, it is a tradition. It's not something everybody's getting around to watch. I think as much as maybe
it was always
on.
It was always on when growing up for us.
It's always a backdrop thing, but now late afternoon on Christmas Day, less of a backdrop thing, more of a let's all gather around the proverbial fireplace, which is now a huge flat screen television, and watch an NFL game as opposed to sit around and drink hot cocoa. And nobody's opening gifts late in the afternoon either. So it's perfect.
To me, the biggest game is the Black Friday game with Amazon. Aaron Rodgers and Tua. For me, on this slate.
I have a hard time talking about it being a huge game when it's one of two. It is a big game. But to me, the real specialty games, those are the ones when it's the one-off. Like it's just big. I don't know. It's bigger. Yes, it's a rivalry.
Just of what they've announced.
And they're doing something that it's on. Here's the thing. It's the NFL. People are going to watch. And on a holiday, people are especially going to watch. But my point is, when I see division rival Giants, Eagles, and I see division rival Jets, Dolphins, my initial reaction is, being the cynic that I am, boy, that's convenient because there's two of those. And now you just repurposed one on a holiday when everyone's going to watch. So that's really good for the NFL. Smart move by them, but it's just all winning for the NFL.
Chad, we were discussing Patrick Mahomes, and he signed a 10-year contract, $500 million, and how he just kept going down the list of the highest annual average for quarterbacks. And I don't understand how people can't make the connection that this has already been reported. And it was reported on April 20th by quote tweeting the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, which we discussed. And now we're sitting here on May 10th with a headline from Ian Rappaport that says Patrick Mahomes waiting for Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert contracts to ask Chiefs for more money. He doesn't have to ask the Chiefs for more money because Brett Veach, the general manager, on April 20th, straight up said, hey, we're going to adjust his contract after this quarterback cycle is concluded. So that's not breaking news. This is just clickbait BS that they put out because they're looking for a little clout weeks after. The general manager has already said, we will make Patrick Mahomes the highest paid quarterback again, and we're not going to do it until Joe Burrow feels like he is the highest paid quarterback again.
It's amazing how we can just recreate a news cycle.
Yeah, let's just rewrite.
Just over and over again and act like it's new.
Oh,
that was already said by the GM? Oh, let's just write it again, and we'll repurpose it for something different. This was always going to happen. I mean, he was going to wait until the water settled to know exactly what he was going to be getting paid.
Chiefs general manager Brett Veach reported on April 20th. I think that this organization and the relationship we have with Pat will always be working to make sure we're doing right by everybody. There will be a couple more contracts that still have to get done, Burrow and Herbert. And once they do, I think you kind of look at everything and assess where you are and what you can do and take it from there. And then he alludes to this. You can start chasing the different contracts and try to get ahead of things. But he says you can start chasing it and forget about the job at hand, but Pat's got a great feel for all that stuff. The main thing he wanted to do, which my hat goes off to him, is he wanted to do a deal that was team-friendly so that we could sign. If you lose a left tackle, if you go out, if you need flexibility, we could do that. So, he's got a great feel for all of that. Discussing the deal that he has versus the quarterbacks that are now signing above him. But even in this old presser, he's saying, hey, we're not going to make him the highest paid today. We're going to wait right up until this cycle concludes. And now we've had 2 of the 4. Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts are complete. We're waiting on Herbert and Burrow. And then Mahomes is going to be on top again, where he should be, because he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, it's on both sides. I mean, it's not just Brett Veach, he's saying this, but it's Mahomes' camp also saying, we want to see what these other quarterbacks get, then we'll reassess and reevaluate where we're going and what contract we're going to sign for and how big we're going to go. Now, it's good business on both sides, and Veach is even giving Mahomes credit, saying he was team-friendly with the last one.
Yeah.
We will honor that and honor him by making him the highest-paid quarterback when it's time.
And when he signed on the last one, it was during the 2020 season where teams were terrified, and it did happen, that the cap was actually going to go down instead of up because it was based on overall league income. And, of course, some stadiums had half capacity. Some stadiums didn't have any to start the season. By the end of it, they were up to a certain number of fans in the stadiums. But that's a lot of what money generates in order for that to go into the coffers, and they get, 49% of the pot, and the owners keep, 51%. Point being, and TV contracts as well are going to play a factor in this. But when I see the headline that, he did a deal during COVID and all, yes, and Veach has already said they're going to take care of him there. And here's the other thing to point out. He did a 10-year contract where it's 10 years, $500 million, and that's just the That's the bold-faced headline on paper. You're like, wow, we've never seen anything like this. Well, you can only have up to 5 years, and it may be 6 now, of signing bonus money that is spread out over the lifetime of the contract that the NFL player signs. So that's why you don't see other players signing up for these 10-year deals, is because the signing bonuses that a team can hand out is only for a certain amount of time. So that's why you see the 5-year structure most likely, and that's why moving forward, they'll give him another 5-year bump, and they'll be restructuring him again if he's still playing at the same level he is right now. But unquestioned, he is the guy that deserves to get paid this cycle based on what these other guys are going to get.
Doesn't it feel increasingly like all of this is just make-believe? That you can just manipulate it however you want?
Oh, with the
when you get
voidable
the guy,
years?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that if you've got a good quarterback on a rookie contract, that opens up a lot of availability to pay other guys and bring in free agents and all of that. But outside of that, when you are a dominant organization like the New England Patriots were for years with Tom Brady, or the Kansas City Chiefs are now with Patrick Mahomes, I feel like it's all a magic act. It's like the Matthew McConaughey talking about it in Wolf of Wall Street, what the markets are. That's the salary cap to me. When I hear all these things about how they can voidable years and salary cap bonus and then or signing bonus mixed with this and how they can spread it out, it's just a magic act that they can manipulate however they need to make it work.
And they're not going to rip up the current contract because it's a very team-friendly deal. What they will do is bump him up on the annual average to where he's just above, wherever the new high water mark is for NFL players. Coming up, Bobby Carpenter joins us. He will jump in and react to all things NFL and college football. And Chad, he was a Swiftie this past weekend.
Oh, can't wait to hear about this.
In luxury. That's next on Hot Mic. Recently retiring. Your locker was very close to Tom's locker, wasn't
right next to 12, yeah.
What was that like?
Man, it was cool, man. He's a funny dude, man. He's a nice guy. Joke with him every day. You know, he's a good dude, man. He's probably one of the only dudes that I know that walk around in a bathrobe in the locker room, bro. So
you go up against him in practice all the time. Could you see that big jump coming from Daniel Jones going into this season?
Man, when I first played against Daniel, you know, coming in last year and seeing him work, man, I knew, you know, the talent that he had. It was just one of those things where, you know, you always hear the saying, God's timing is always right. It was just one of those moments where you knew eventually it was going to click and everything was going to work out, not just for him, but for us as a team. And I'm just so happy for him.
Which video game are you most proud of making the cover for?
Oh, definitely Madden. Yeah. Like I remember I come from a big family. My mom had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and a lot of cousins, 30-some cousins, and you know. And I remember one of the younger ones was like, "Man, you're on Madden. You're really good." And I was like, "Cuz, like, I was the high school #1 player in the country.
Yeah.
I broke every record at Alabama, All-American. I get the pros. I'd won the MVP already. You know?
Yeah.
Been to the Super Bowl, won the MVP. He's like, now, because of Madden, now you're cool. I was like, oh, okay.
You had done a few things.
Yeah. You know, now I'm good. Okay, all right, well, that's how it works in y'all's minds.
And I remember when I first started working in the morning news, shout out to Drew Kaliski, super producer for NFL Today. He was just talking about season. How you feeling? You know, you ready to go? Are you excited? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like awkwardly hesitating to ask me a question. And I'm like, what's up, man? Speak your piece. And he's like, do you know what's going on in the NFL? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you know who plays for what teams and who's been traded where? I'm like, yeah, bro, what do you think? I'm living under a rock? And this is my job. I'm studying just like anything else.
Chad, full disclosure, during the break, I'm thinking, well, I reacted to my favorite game last year, and it turned out not to be so great. I can't remember what it was. It was probably a Thursday night football game, right?
Yeah.
If it leads into Amazon's schedule again with injured quarterbacks, it will be Zach Wilson starting against Mike White on Black Friday.
Wow. That would be a blockbuster. That is one
That's
that
what
we
you pay $1
all
billion
wanna see.
for.
Yes.
We're coming back with Taylor Swift playing on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. The Swiftie, though, is not sitting at this table. It's joining us by Zoom. Bobby Carpenter, fresh off of the Taylor Swift show of his lifetime.
How you doing, fellas?
How are you, man? How was the show at Nissan Stadium, and did it live up to the hype? Oh, maybe we've lost Bobby there. We'll have to reconnect with him is what we'll do. Won't even try to talk to him again until I get a thumbs up.
I think he was just so shook by
Chad,
the experience of Taylor Swift that he couldn't even hear us.
In the description last week, he said that he had, the caravan coming down. What he had was 2 private jets. And I know because he sent me the video of it. I said, are you in traffic? He's like, absolutely not. Let me show you why. And I said, this is unbelievable. And he goes, I have a great skill of knowing people that, and becoming friends with people who hook me up with a spot on the plane for the family.
Now I'm just ready for that relationship that we have with Bobby to pay off to where we get his relationships to get on a private jet at some point. That's the next step.
Did you know many people that went to the shows?
I just saw everyone on. I didn't talk to anyone about going, but on my social media feed was booked with people that went to that show. I saw so many videos from the concert with people that I know that went.
Yeah. Bobby had a great spot.
Mostly women.
In one of the suites. How was it, Bobby? How was the show?
The show was good, gentlemen. I mean, had a good time with it. Thankfully, the weather held off on Friday. We were looking at maybe going on Sunday, which that was when there was that 4-hour weather delay, which no one would have really liked. But she did a good job, man. She performed. I'll tell you this, it's the first time I've ever been to a concert where we got there when the doors opened at 4:30, and there was about 10 to 20,000 people lined up, ready to get in, just to get into a seat that was already predetermined. It's not like you were getting into jockey for some better position, but all of the merchandise, drinks, all this stuff that was going on. I mean, it was definitely an event to say the least.
How long did she perform?
Oh, goodness. She performed for probably 3 hours. I mean, she started off at 8:15. We dipped out about halfway through the last song because we had a Nissan Armada that we had to pack about 17 people into since we couldn't get a car back to the airport that night. So it was a pretty difficult situation to say the least. But yeah, she played for like a full 3 hours. It's a little sprinkle. She had a couple opening acts that were really good. But it was amazing. Like seeing the lines for people buying merchandise, which I've never bought a concert T-shirt in my life. Of course, my wife bought some for my daughter and her friend and herself. So it wasn't bad. I mean, I guess the sweatshirts were like $80. The T-shirts were $35. So it wasn't atrocious. I thought the T-shirts would be $60 and the hoodies would be $120. But man, like she's doing it right. There are 80,000 people in Nissan for 3 nights in a row. And I'm guessing the average ticket in that place is at minimum $250. And so you start doing the math on what this tour is going to look like for her.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's going to come in somewhere between $175 and $200 million for her easily.
Well, I was talking with someone in the industry about this. So the average musician, the average artist gets 15% of the Ticketmaster sale, but you get a huge amount of the merch, nearly all of it. So if you just do the math on that, she's making like $6.5 million per show on tickets alone. And she's doing that back to back to back. And then the merch, she's making well over $10 million a show, which shows you why she wanted to wait until, midnight or 1 a.m. on Sunday to get that show in, because everything was set up and it's worth paying the, whatever the fee is to keep the place open past 11 p.m. because it's going to cost her more to bring the show back for a makeup.
Well, it's a testament to economics when you talk about it, because there's less setups, there's less teardowns. You're going to do 2 nights or 3 nights in NFL stadiums, pack that thing to the brim. I mean, the NFL should take a look at this and figure out what she's doing. And here's one of the other things, guys. The merch lines were crazy long. And a lot of people said, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to afford to get in there and pay, it's like $400 or $500 for a decent seat. I mean, $200 is getting you like in the upper deck. So what she did is the concerts are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They said the merch trailer shows up outside on Wednesday before the show starts. So you know what, guys? Even if you weren't going to the show, you can still go down there and go spend a couple $100 right there at the merch shop. And if she's getting a larger cut of that, then you know what, man? She has figured this thing out.
Bobby Carpenter with us, college football analyst, SiriusXM radio host. You can follow him on social at bcarp3. So what we're seeing in the college baseball realm with the gambling, the apps, the investigations from different states and commissions, how behind the scenes, what do you think the conversations are like from the top down of the NCAA right now, knowing that, okay, it's college baseball, but if this comes up in football or in hoops, what's the response to that? What, as a former athlete in the college realm, Bobby, what do you think they're saying?
Well, I think somewhere, I don't know whether it's Vegas or Cincinnati, I'm not sure where he resides, but Pete Rose is probably smiling a little bit and saying, hey, you guys finally got to take a look under the blanket and see what everybody really wanted to be like. And maybe I'm not that bad of a guy. I'm not the guy that everybody painted me out to be. I mean, we all thought it was going to be maybe some players. What was surprising at first is the fact that it was the Alabama coach. I mean, You're talking about a grown man making those decisions. Then you start looking at the Iowa situation. I'll say this, the speed of which these things have been discovered, have been processed, and then will probably ultimately be remedied, that's something that I think should be reassuring, because there's nothing that the NCAA does that's ever this quick. You think about the stuff that they seem to have teed up for them. They can't get schools to communicate. They can't get any cooperation. And it takes like 2 years where everybody's gone, and all of a sudden then like, hey, now we can finally punish, Penn State or Miami or Ohio State or LSU or whoever it is with this stuff that happened. And we're going to take forever to get it done. This stuff happened 2 or 3 days. It was flagged immediately for the activity. They get it to the right people. They shut down the bets, and they dive into it right away. So while there is some concern, I believe water always finds the lowest point, and people are probably experimenting with it right now. And I hate being punitive in nature just simply to prove a point, but we've talked about this. You understand, with great power comes great responsibility, and now the opportunity has been opened up for collegiate athletes who, by the way, they should be able to gamble on other sports outside of their own. Because we talk about student athletes and how they're able to do everything the same. Many student athletes can go gamble on anything as long as you're 18 years old and it's legal in your state. So why can't those student athletes place bets on football games or baseball if they play basketball or vice versa and figure that thing out? Like, I have no problem with that. The same way NFL players should be able to bet on things that are not their sport. But we're learning a lot about it. And going back to being punitive in nature, I mean, if you bet on your own sport, and especially in games that you're involved in as a player or a coach, the hammer should be swift and it should be really firm, because that way it'll set a precedent where, listen, guys, I mean, there's so much technology now. It's so much easier to track and to catch. This isn't you going to some bookie, behind a bar 25, 30 years ago. I mean, you're geo-fenced. They're tracking you. They can, said with the deal with the Red, I mean, it's Great American Ballpark, they had video surveillance. They were able to find the phone and zoom in and be able to see exactly what was happening. I mean, it's a little bit scary in society now. It might be a little, Minority Report, Vanilla Sky-esque, where things are going on, but it ultimately should be reassuring, because I don't know if there's an avenue to be able to do this where, even if it's your cousins, brothers, sister who's calling in bets, they'll be able to connect it through some sort of digital trail unless you're sending them a stinking letter through UPS. I mean, there's no way not to be able to get around this.
Well, and Bobby, you're hitting on something here. Attack the things that you need to attack if you're a governing body. Obviously, the principle in sports is it's to do no harm with the game, and everyone is giving their best effort to win. And the moment people start questioning that, your sport is in trouble. So obviously, the NCAA rule should be you can't bet on the sport you participate in. If you're a college football player, certainly can't bet on a game you're involved in, but just don't bet on college football. But if you want to bet on the NFL on Sunday, or if you're a college basketball player and want to place a bet on the Celtics Sixers, have at it. Well, how is that affecting anyone if you do that? But the NCAA rule is you can't bet on any sport that is NCAA sponsored, which leaves UFC and cricket that you could bet on at any level. You can't bet on any NCAA sponsored sport, baseball, basketball, football at any level, or it's an NCAA violation. To me, that makes no sense.
Well, considering there's more sports collegiately that are successful, or there are 36, 37 varsity sports you have across the NCAA, and I mean, how many viable professional leagues do we have that you're able to gamble on? Like, that's the real question. Like you said, I mean, UFC, I mean, boxing.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
Like, I'm not sure where you would go with that. So my thing is, listen, be swift and be very punitive. If you were caught betting on your sport and in the region that you play, if you play college baseball, you can't bet on college baseball. You can't bet on college football if you play college football. But anything else should be fair game. And say, listen, this is fine. But if you get caught, you're done. You're done. You're no longer able to play collegiate athletics. And I think most people would sign up and say, okay, I agree with that. Just in case, like, the temptation is always going to be there. And you know what? Get behind it. But if you get caught, which we've shown now that it's much easier to get caught than ever before. And so if you do get caught, you're done. And so basically you're playing with fire there. The guys should ultimately know it. They should see it. And they should have examples now where, you know, if you're a coach, dude, you're done. You know, you're banned. You cannot coach in collegiate athletics anymore. And I know that sounds punitive, but it's right there. You cannot have people question the integrity of your sport. And so you give them that ban, especially for, you know, college athletes. And then you're forced to go pro. If you have to wait, you know, due to age restrictions or time out of high school, like you have to wait a year, like it'll be incredibly punitive. But it's so easy to monitor now that it's not something like traditional NCAA monitoring systems where you have to collect intel and go meet with people and try to find receipts and, you know, car registrations and all this nonsense, you know, about amateur stuff and amateur status. This is all right there. And it's the stinking sites that turn it over to the states. And the states just turn it over. I mean, they give you a prepackaged deal, and there's not really any pushback because I'm not sure what your self-defense is.
Bobby Carpenter, you can follow him on social at BCarp3.
So Bob Huggins goes on a Cincinnati radio station, WLW, and says, refers to Xavier students, I think is what he was saying, and fans, as Catholic bleeps. And the bleeps is a homophobic slur. And then he doubled down on it. I immediately thought, Bobby, that he's not coming back from this. West Virginia is going to fire him after this interview. Were you surprised that he was not fired after making those remarks?
You know, I had some conversations today with people who had worked with him at Cincinnati. He was at Cincinnati for a long time. And full disclosure, I've always been a fan of Bob Huggins. I thought he did a good job as a coach. You know, one of my good friends went down to Cincinnati, was friends with his daughter, Jenna. You know, I used to talk to basketball players from Cincinnati. I mean, guys were from really rough parts of the country. They all love Bob Huggins. I mean, you get in there and mix it up with them in practice. I mean, get physical, you know, physically beat on them practicing during their time. And, you know, but they all loved him. They all really appreciated him. You know, he was talking to a guy, I believe, that was on his staff at Cincinnati. Should he have said what he said? Absolutely not. I mean, do I believe Bob Huggins to be a bigot, you know, racist, a homophobe? I don't think so. I mean, I don't truly know him, but I've never seen stuff like this before. I know he's a guy that likes a few soda pops. I mean, if there's anything you could say that maybe he, you know, drinks a little too much, and heck, maybe he was half in the bag during that interview. You guys have worked at, you know, terrestrial radio before. You know, the producer should have dumped the darn thing and made sure that it never saw the light of day, and then you could figure out, you know, how to handle it from there. But I think probably the one place that he could survive is in the state of West Virginia. Gordon Gee is their president, and he understands probably the value that Bob Huggins, you know, brings to that university, what he's been able to do, even though they maybe haven't had the greatest success, you know, consistently lately. But let's not act like he got off scot-free. I mean, the dude lost $1 million of his salary. His contract's on a year-to-year basis. He's getting suspended, and, you know, I believe he's given a heavy donation to Xavier as well. So there are consequences for this, which, you know, I do believe that, you know, the punishment should fit the crime. I don't know, you know, with the cancel culture, like, the guy said something that was obviously inappropriate and was demeaning. He's paying for that. Literally, he's paying dollars for that. the total loss of a job after doing, working for so many years. I don't know if I can get behind that for a lot of different people and a lot of different things. Like, I think America is a nation of second chances, and Huggins probably had a number of chances himself in different arenas, just given his past. But I don't believe him to be a guy with malice in his heart. Like I said, I don't truly know that. And so West Virginia, they love him there, and there's going to be some steep penalties, and then he's going to have to come back, and it's a year-to-year deal. So he's going to have to win, and he's not going to have any room to move and have any other slip-ups, or he'll be out. So I think that's probably a fairly appropriate penalty, as opposed to just automatically going in and getting rid of him, without giving any process for redemption.
Bobby Carpenter joins us each week, and you can catch him on SiriusXM Channel 84. Bobby, thank you as always, man. Enjoy this, and we will catch up next week with you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
The jet setter, Bobby Carpenter there.
The Swiftie.
Yeah. Oh, I mean.
Our resident Taylor Swift expert,
It pays to
Bobby Carpenter.
have friends in high places like Bobby Carpenter there.
Some of the videos I saw from that show, I feel like I missed out. Looked pretty awesome. Just the visual spectacle of that concert and everything that was going on looked pretty cool.
Very glitterified.
Yeah. Now, some of the young women, teenage to even 35 years old, that were crying in the crowd, could have done without. Not going to lie.
Like you with Backstreet Boys?
Got a little bit emotional at times. A little too emotional, I think. When they play I Want It That Way, Hutton, you're going to get a little bit emotional.
Coming up, we dive into the Iowa and Iowa State betting scandal, and the NCAA with a chance to step up and drop the hammer if they so choose, where I don't think, Chad, they're going to get a lot of pushback. Details next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
OutKick's Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Coming up, Clay Travis will join us. That will be in a little under an hour from right now. 6th and Peabody, our location, with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad, Mark Emmert, in many ways, powerless. He didn't want to step forward. Not the alpha mentality. Not a great leader during a time where they needed someone to step forward. In Charlie Baker's new NCAA vision, whatever that might be, for whatever reason he wanted the job. I don't think it's a job many people would want, to be the president of the NCAA right now. And that's in large part in regards to NIL and where we're headed in pay for play and what universities are doing, the have-nots, the split, the conference realignment, all of it. But I think there's one area where Baker and the NCAA could lead, and if they don't, I wonder if Sankey and others will, is in regards to what we're seeing right now with the betting scandals. From Alabama and their former head coach to the investigations that are going on with Iowa and Iowa State, with multiple sports, not just baseball. The NCAA has a chance to bring the hammer down if they so choose and set an example and a precedent that normally we'd sit here and mock and laugh at and crumble up and throw in the garbage. And in this case, I don't know of an entity connected to the NCAA that would bemoan them taking a hardline stance with this. And look, innocent mistakes, whatever. That wasn't the case, it doesn't seem like, at Alabama. I don't know every single situation that Iowa's looking into, or Iowa State for that matter, with their gambling commission. Point being, there are programs that have always been used as the example to scare tactic other programs for doing something and then for fear of penalty. And I don't know how you appeal a penalty when even the companies that are advertising with college sports, like FanDuel, DraftKings, and everyone else, they're not even going to push back on it because they're in on leaking things that come up flagged as suspicious. Do you see where I'm going with what Baker has a chance to do? Even from the legality standpoint, I'm just saying, just from an overview of leadership, this is the one area and the one path where they can set the example that everyone's back on board with the decision that they make.
The NCAA has long had a rule book that's 6 inches thick, and it should be about a 1/4 inch thick. And that's been their biggest problem. They have their eye and their mind on too many things at once. There are too many rules that they get inundated with that don't matter. Focus on what matters. This is another classic example. What Brad Bohannon, the head coach at Alabama, was doing is a fireable offense and could be punished by the court system based on what we find out what he did and what he didn't do. Worry about those things. If Iowa State and Iowa players were betting on their own games, that's a problem. That's a big-time problem. You got to weed that out. They can't play college sports anymore, ever, for anyone else. They're done. All of them. That's how you make an example. Because you cannot even hint at impropriety with the integrity of your sports. That's how you get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Now, if these Iowa State and Iowa players are betting on the NBA or they're betting on the NFL, I don't care. And the NCAA shouldn't care either. They need to change that rule. To tell me that someone who's of legal age to bet on an online sports wagering system that is a sponsor of your school or your conference or the NCAA, and to tell them that they can't bet on any sport sponsored by the NCAA at any level, even if it's a pro sport, that's not the NCAA, that's stupid. That's not affecting the integrity of the NCAA at all. Now, Iowa State baseball players betting on their games? Absolutely.
What if you're free?
Get rid of them.
What if you're in the athletic dorm and you know something's happening for the football program?
Oh, I think that there's no way to prevent that. And then insider tips has never been, an issue that they could even prosecute or go after.
But those within the athletic programs, communication-wise, I mean, I think that's why the rules in place.
If you find if it's a player that's giving information to someone and they're profiting from it, yes. But they got to be kicked out of the sport.
Right, but my point is, like, if the other person is also an athlete on campus, but they just don't play that sport, I think that's why.
No, you can't bet. Look, I'm with you on that. And again, if there is a mutual sharing of information that leads to a player on a team profiting from it in any way or giving information to another athlete and they're betting on that sport, Look, I would even be fine, Hutton, if they said you can't bet on any NCAA sport. Because of that, because we don't
want. But if you want to do NFL, if you want to
we don't want info sharing in the athletic dorm between the baseball player and the basketball player, the football player, whatever. Cut that out and say that. But I think this is another classic example of the NCAA. Mark Emmert was both a weakling and a tyrant at the same time. He was overly powerful and overly heavy-handed in some instances, and he was a puny, weak monarch in other ones.
Well, that's the problem when Yahoo Sports did the investigating for him.
That's the problem when you have a rule book that's so thick, though, that some of the rules make no sense. Cut it out. Give me the things that legitimately matter. And what matters is if you're betting on the actual sport you're in college. I don't care if you bet on the NBA, if you're a college athlete. And currently that's illegal in the NCAA. That makes no sense.
Well, you also can't do that if you are in the NFL on team property. Right, so if you're at the dorm, I guess that would be the equivalent of the practice facility or the living arrangements for whatever the university is supplying.
This is anywhere. If you're a college athlete, you can't bet on any. And what I mean by any sport sponsored by the NCAA, let me make this clear. I'm not talking about NCAA sports. I'm saying if the NCAA plays tennis and it's sponsored, which they do, you can't bet on a pro tennis match. If you are a college football player, you can't bet on the U.S. Open in tennis. That is dumb. Get rid of that and make it where they can't bet on college sports or their own sport. That makes sense. We need common sense approaches to things.
Beyond just having bullet points and taking away things from the rule book, Baker and the NCAA, what hammer can be dropped on what happened at Bama? And I'm not saying that the players deserve to be punished for what their coach was doing, but there has to be some type of repellent to this.
Yeah.
Because this isn't the first time or the last time this will go down. It was just an idiot who didn't have a burner phone that got caught. If we're just putting it if the guy just uses a number that doesn't trace back to him, this is not flagged. And by the way, if Bama wins the game, this is not flagged. And they nearly came back and won that game.
If it's proven to just be the coach in this instance, everything's got to be treated separately in this. If it was just the coach that was doing it, he's already been fired. He should go to jail, or he should face whatever punishment is there for the legal system. If it is a problem, let's say Iowa baseball, one being investigated now. If this is all the players getting together and profiting by betting on their games, give them the death penalty.
Yeah, because you got the racket going.
Give them the death penalty. If you want to be heavy-handed with what you're talking about, Hutton, and a chance to send a message, give them 3 years. They don't have a program.
Well, but see, I'm not always wanting to be heavy-handed. I just think in this instance, Chad, the heavy-handedness level, I don't know in this case that they would get much pushback.
I love being on camera this long, by the way, while you're talking.
They would not get much pushback from that.
It's the reaction shot.
So this is the one area where they can take charge, where in other areas they can't take charge anymore because they allowed conferences, individual universities, programs to take their own way and their own path, and their own state governments to take those paths. And in this lane, they could have a hardline stance. It would be hard. I mean, I'm saying like extremely strict. But this is the one path that Charlie Baker can actually go down to where I don't think he's going to get much pushback in terms of, oh, yeah, sure, you're going to enforce this.
Every other AD will say, there but for the grace of God, go I. I'm serious with that they're going to say, all right, if this is going to be the deterrent, great. Maybe this will stop our programs from doing it. But you got to give them the, again, if it's a widespread, multiple player coach thing.
What if Sankey did it for the conference?
Give him the death penalty.
Yeah.
Well, Sankey's got more power than Charlie Baker.
I know, but it's another chance for him to grab more of that rope.
But I don't think you do it in the case of Alabama if it's just the coach. I don't want to penalize all the players and the team if it's just the coach.
You don't have to retroactively do it, but you can set a hardline stance of if this now happens, this guy is no longer allowed to coach in any realm within our conference.
This guy's done regardless, but yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and a hardline stance with that. Pat McAfee, is he on the move? Massive brand, could be, and what's that value? That's next on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying, even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back, and if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Wednesday edition of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching there. If you're listening, thank you for listening to this great radio partner. Yeehaw Beer at Old Smoky Moonshine. That's where you can find us here at 6th and Peabody in Music City. Chad, we've got Clay Travis coming up in about 40 minutes from right now. Always a great conversation there. Pat McAfee has been a friend of the show in past visits, and from time to time when we're out and about different cities, we'll see him at the big events. And what he has built the platform with his show and what FanDuel ended up giving him, which was a 4-year, $120 million contract, changed the game because he negotiated everything, all the rights deals, all of it. And the platform that he has is way different than most media platforms. And rumors are circulating that he's headed to ESPN. Now, if you think about what he's already done, he's rejoined them in a way. He's part of what was College Game Day, and the ratings were tremendous for those weekends that he was available to join them for College Game Day. Of course, the value of his program would skyrocket whatever ESPN would like to promote. WWE, he is heavily involved there. Endeavor is partnered with ESPN with now the UFC. The UFC and WWE have now joined, so they've merged. So WWE's television rights deal is up very soon, and they'll be negotiating with Turner and Fox, and of course, ESPN can get in that game too. All of those tie-ins make sense, except for the fact that on many of the Disney/ESPN platforms, it's a different type and vibe of show than what McAfee has produced on his own. And coming on the heels of what we've seen with Portnoy and this past week with Penn Entertainment and Mincy, I look at this and think, is McAfee like Dana White is to ESPN, or is McAfee like most of the talking heads to ESPN? And I choose to think that if, in fact, this is true, he's going to be more of the Dana White path, meaning for everything that you knock ESPN for, Dana's on the opposite side of it, doing exactly what they pretend to hate. And they let it go because it brings in revenue. And so would McAfee.
I think it would be a monumental mistake if he went to ESPN. And I say it for this reason. Pat McAfee is a unicorn. He is a rare bird. He is one of the very few people in the history of media that has both the talent and the work ethic to make it work on his own with exactly what he wanted to do. He knew exactly what he wanted. He went out there and took it with his friends that had a similar mindset, that had a similar sensibility and personality for what they wanted to do, and they went out and did it. And they signed a huge deal with FanDuel. Now that hasn't worked out. And he's saying new leadership at FanDuel, we don't see eye to eye, and we're on the market and we're looking for something new. He's also come out and tweeted that, what all the reports are, not necessarily true about seeing eye to eye, and we're just dumb enough to continue doing what we want. He doesn't need to go work for a corporate overlord. He can get away with that once a week on Saturday, doing College Game Day with ESPN. I think the way Pat McAfee does a show and how free he is and what he does now, he is going to hate with a capital H, working for some corporate overlord that's going to give him stupid notes by someone who has no clue what he's doing and try to tell him exactly how to format his show and exactly what to talk about and exactly when not to talk to Aaron Rodgers if he starts talking about vaccination requirements. He will hate that. I hope he doesn't go to Disney, ESPN, for that reason, because I'm a fan of his, and I hope he continues to get to do exactly what he wants.
But the executives at the time didn't choose to invest in him, and they didn't want him on College Game Day initially because they didn't think the old whites would tune in. That was McAfee's quote, not mine.
Yep.
And then guess what happened? They tuned in. And now you're seeing the about face with the programming and the path that they are trying to go down by bringing him and obtaining him. I don't know what the price tag would be, but everyone has one. And with McAfee, it's going to be massive no matter what he chooses to do. And the question is, as far as like the tree of everything that the guy is, you mentioned the work ethic, it's not just his show, it's everything else he's a part of. And the availability with that. How much of those branches is intriguing to him based on what ESPN could also acquire with their partnership with Endeavor, for instance, or with what he wants to do moving forward with College Game Day?
I think as a sole proprietor of that show and what he's doing now, he's got the best of all worlds. He can be a part-time contractor for ESPN. He could go do work for WWE. He could go do work with Dana White if he wanted to. He can go do work on another specialty ESPN project if he wants and not be owned by that corporation. If he takes all the money... And
right now, he has Pac-Man Jones sitting in the studio with him.
I guarantee you there's a lot of money at stake. Like, I get it, right? ESPN could offer him a ton.
Sure.
It is a mega... It's Disney. Let's take ESPN out of it. It's Disney we're talking about. Mega corporation. Could offer him the world financially. But once he does that, I'm not calling him a sellout, but you have sold out. I mean, you have done that.
Portnoy admitted that.
If you sell it, yes. I mean, you are a sellout. Like, you're taking all the money, and you were then owned by that company.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment Aaron Rodgers, his weekly guest, comes on and said something that is antithetical to the Disney mission or something they hate, Disney has the right to say, you were done interviewing Aaron Rodgers. And Pat McAfee has to sit there and eat it and not say anything about it.
Well,
Pat McAfee's not the type to not say something about it right now. I love the space that he's in right now and what he's created, where he's got his own thing and he can go work for big corporations and do other things on the side.
Yeah, and to your point, whenever the UFC is on ESPN Plus, they do attempt to censor what is said in the octagon post-fight, which is very difficult with these guys because they're just rattling off left. I mean, for everything you're saying though, it's the same company that does have Colby Covington hold a microphone and cut a promo on a UFC product. Now, Colby Covington's on the pay-per-view for a reason and not on, the free TV aspect of ESPN or ABC because they know that he's going to rip into whatever. And if you're going to get that, you're going to get the diehards that buy the pay-per-view and not the the free TV, so to speak.
I mean,
but they do look the other way in that regard.
They own UFC?
No, they pay for the rights to it, which is what they would be doing here.
Yeah,
in this
I
case.
just think we're talking about two very different things. I mean, owning the rights to something and having a member of that league say something on there is different. None of these.
That's what FanDuel does. FanDuel owns the rights for the sponsorship of behind McAfee, and this would be ESPN.
That's why he left. I mean, he said in a tweet, he said, the new executives at FanDuel, we don't see eye to eye. He's not going to – I mean, I just don't think you should do that at ESPN. And let's get it straight here. I've always long wondered how the league seemed to own the networks in these situations. Like, it's not the other way around. Like, UFC probably tells ESPN what they're going to do. If he sells to ESPN and is a part of the ESPN daily lineup, make no mistake about it. ESPN calls the shots. And if they hate something, it will be cut off of that show quickly, and he won't be doing it. I don't think he's going to operate well that way.
Well, I don't either. And I don't think he will do that type of deal. But it's not like he is rated R on the WWE broadcast. He censors himself on that.
Josh in the YouTube chat says, would you move this show to ESPN for $250 million? Well, yeah, if I had the say over that, of course I would. My point is, I think he can make $250 million without selling to ESPN. That's what I think he's built. He started to do that with FanDuel, but then they were exacting a lot of control. I just don't think that Disney and ESPN would be the right home. There may be another big business, some Goliath that comes in, where I'd say that makes more sense for Pat McAfee. But him and his guys, they're wildly successful right now without having to sell out to ESPN. But I'm curious to see where all this goes. I'm fascinated by this media story.
Chad, there's a LSU basketball player on the women's team, Flaugy Johnson, who has mocked 9/11 in a rap video. She is actually under the label with Jay-Z, and it's listed in her high school recruiting bio as one of the top recruits in the country when LSU was trying to bring her on to be part of the Tigers program. And now she's making headlines because of this.
I know they sour in this 9/11 blowing smoke just like them towers.
So she's under the Rock Nation label, known for rapping, and is mocking the 9/11 attacks, which born after the 9/11 attacks, no doubt, by this case, right? 2001. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of
born
people in college now. So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those areas where we are compared to, like, if you made a joke about JFK about 20 years after, I'm sure people felt the same way.
Yeah.
In the future, I don't know, like 20 to 30 years from now, I don't know what the reaction would be for me. But now I take this and think, man, idiot. Like, have some common sense.
I just think she's being really dumb. I don't think she's being really insensitive.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
If that makes sense,
doesn't come across the right.
She's talking about a car, I think, is what she's
blowing
referencing.
Smoke like the Twin Towers.
So she was trying to look for something about blowing smoke, and she probably remembers seeing the towers blowing smoke, and it was just it's a really dumb and insensitive thing that's being said. But I don't feel like she's outwardly trying to mock the death of 9/11. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, so I kind of look at this differently in that you treat it like it's stupid because it was, but I also don't know. I mean, just release a quick statement about, hey, I was trying to rhyme and make a reference to something, and now I realize that was just really dumb. And then LSU says something along the same lines, and then we move on.
Yeah, well, LSU said we spoke with her, and she has remorse.
So we were talking about this pre-show also. Are there certain tragedides that it's just never funny, that you can never reference in any type of pop culture?
Never, no.
And not without reverence, right?
No, it depends who you are. Pete Davidson can joke about this all he wants to.
Because he lost someone.
Yeah, his dad died in 9/11.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he jokes about it. But it's one of those shocking things. Like, I can't believe he just said that. Or at a roast, someone will make – Chad, we've watched the roasts. Pete Davidson's on the dais, and people get up behind the podium and rip into him and make a reference about 9/11 to him.
Anthony Jeselnik. has done that.
And the response is just not the same. But it's so I say everything's on the table depending on who you are and what you've experienced and how you relate to it, and how you're either joking about it or you're not.
Yeah, and I think that comedy is sort of our last protected area in entertainment, where you can get away with a lot more and you can be insensitive in the name of comedy and in stand-up. I mean, a rap lyric about it, it's dumb, but I didn't hear that rap lyric and think, oh, she hates America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah.
If it was a song that the sole thing was celebrating 9/11 in the song, then I would say, yeah, LSU should probably distance themselves from this athlete and not have her on the team, and a lot more should happen. But I hear that lyric and I think, this is just a dumb kid that's connecting a rap lyric and rhyming and something that's just stupid to put in a rap song. That's what I thought from that.
Because the words, made sense.
But I do think there's a whole level of, we can joke about this, but we can't joke about this. And certain people can joke about these things. Other people should never touch it.
And if you want to get offended, you can find something to be offended about.
Well, there's the whole Seinfeld episode about someone converted to Judaism for the jokes, right? That Jerry was claiming that a guy converted to Judaism so he could make Jewish jokes, right, the whole time.
Yes.
I mean, there's truth to that. Like you mentioned with Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson can joke about those things, write it into things he's in, and it's different coming from him because it's a personal thing with him.
Not all
but
of
other
the
people
jokes,
shouldn't joke about it.
No, hang on though. Not every one of those jokes is coming from him. He's sitting in the room as they're being made.
Yeah.
And it's not a headline.
Yeah, it's how people are going to take it.
It's promoted by Comedy Central.
Yeah.
So, again, if you want to be offended, you can find easily a way to be offended in this world.
I agree. I wasn't offended by this.
Well, I
heard the lyric. I thought it was dumb, but
it's
it's a stupid reference to make, but I don't hear it and get offended. I am amazed, though, at the amount of people who claim that people get too offended too easily, that seemingly are always offended by something.
Yeah, I'm offended. You're offended about the offensive things that you're not offended by.
We talked about this with the Bud Light story, right?
Yes.
Boy, man, the world is just Charmin soft, and everybody's offended by anything. Boycott Bud Light because they made a bad marketing decision. I mean, I don't see how you can have it both ways. I think it's pretty soft on all sides when you go at it that way. Are there things that are said? Bob Huggins is a good example. Do I think he should be fired and not be able to coach again because he made a terrible joke and said bad words? No. Do I think it's an awful thing that he said and you just can't say that in an interview? Yes. And he should be punished in some way for saying it. Shouldn't cost him his job, shouldn't cost him his profession, but he should be punished in some way for saying it.
But at the same time,
there's different levels of it.
But at the same time, in saying that, Tom Brenneman lost gigs that didn't even correlate to the Cincinnati Reds broadcast. And he's no longer one of the voices of the NFL on Fox.
And I don't think he should have been fired.
No. He's apologizing in the middle of the game, and there's a long drive to deep left center field, and next thing we know, he's not on the broadcast again. And 6 months later, he's speaking to the Bob Huggins coach basketball team about it.
Yeah, Billy Bush got fired, and because he laughed at a joke off air from Donald Trump. You brought it up earlier, Hutton, but what happens to those radio hosts in Cincinnati?
No.
What happens if those guys get fired and Bob Huggins still has a job? He just makes $1 million less for the year. I mean, that's a possibility, though. That's how out of sorts everything is. When you look at punishment for some and not for others, and, well, what is it? If you're very talented at what you're doing and you've won a ton of games, you're in the Hall of Fame, your punishment may be different than some radio host in Cincinnati, which may be different from someone else, even if something was, you didn't even say it, someone else did, but you laughed. It's all crazy. To me, it's all crazy.
The Georgia Bulldogs have declined the invitation to the White House because of a student-athlete schedule. We will discuss that from the football program. And we also need to dive into, Chad, the outrage of Phil Mickelson with the Live Tour and the Saudis. One of the biggest stars on the planet, for the most popular sport on the planet, is and was negotiating Saudi money. He's about to. One already has. And the headlines are way different. That's next on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up. Quit littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
And people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Clay Travis joins us in 17 minutes as Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine.
Just I'm laughing, Hutton, at like we were talking about stories of when you're the one that's wrong.
Yeah.
In like a everyday social setting.
Every day.
But your reaction, I rarely do this, but I've seen it, but your reaction is to get mad at the other person, even though you're at fault. Like you do something to warrant someone honking at you, and then you get mad at the person who honks as if they did something wrong.
You're mad at them for being mad at you.
We have references that we can't share on air, but that's what we were talking about.
It is with your thoughts.
Makes
in the
me
chat
laugh.
on YouTube. You can join the channel there. We hope you'll subscribe. Just search out OutKick on YouTube and join us at OutKick.com and on this great radio partner. Chad, Georgia's football team will not be visiting the White House to celebrate the 2023 national championship. They were invited to join the celebrations at the nation's capital in the summer, and the quote comes down as, from a spokesperson with Georgia, unfortunately, the date suggested is not feasible given the student-athlete calendar and time of year. However, we are appreciative of the invitation and look forward to other opportunities for Georgia teams moving forward. You and I have the same stance on this. You get the opportunity to go to the White House, you take it. Especially, as far as student-athletes are concerned, the history of the country and what the White House represents, and the student-athlete calendar doesn't fit the same time frame as the invitation from the president to celebrate your national championship? What are we doing? As an institution of higher learning, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I get mad at, I don't care about your politics or whether you love a president or despise them.
Exactly.
When you get the invitation to be celebrated at the White House from the president of the United States, it is a respect thing that you do it. This kind of goes back to the people who get really offended or upset with one thing and then not the other. I felt the same way with people that would say, I don't agree with Donald Trump, so I'm not going to go when my team goes to the White House because I disagree with the president. I think that's foolish. You get invited by the president of the United States of America in that office. You respect the office. You go. You shake hands with the president. And if you really got something you want to tell them and you want to disagree with them in some way, then you can do it. Now, with this thing with Georgia, I need a little more info because it is odd, the timing of it, where they turned around the UConn and LSU championship teams quickly to come in May. Then they won the title in January, and it's taken this long to get the invite, and it's this far out, and it's in the summer. But even if the schedule wasn't good, wouldn't you come back and say, we can bring a delegation of this many people, but the entire team can't make it? Or, Hutton, wait for it, ask if there's another time they could come when it works. Can't you work something out other than just saying the time the White House gave us doesn't work, so we're not doing it?
Well, but let's also they didn't attend Georgia's back-to-back. They didn't attend in 2021 because of the COVID restrictions that kept them from attending. And if you're just comparing to how quickly teams will go and celebrate their championship, Clemson did it, a week or two after winning the title.
Yeah.
All these things. And two things come to mind for me. Number one, all these COVID bans and restrictions and vaccination statuses have just been lifted. This invitation came on May 3rd. So that's around the same time. Number two, I'm sorry, University of Georgia, but your student-athlete calendar is probably a little bit less important than whatever's going on in D.C. and their calendar. So if they're giving you dates, you work that into whatever you've got going on, and those that can attend should attend, and those that can't because they're in the NFL or whatever they're doing. But the restrictions of the month of June are really the reason why you're pointing to all this? I don't
know why this is the answer. Our student schedule is such that we can't make it work, as opposed to Hutton saying, I can come with 15 people if you're Kirby Smart or the AD or whoever.
Or whatever.
And we can be on, or we want to be there. We're not saying no, but because of the schedule and because of we waited so long for this, or you did, understand that a lot of our players are in the NFL and can't make it.
Well, let's also say this. Alabama, after they won the title in 2017, I believe, was their year, they went to the White House in April. It was 2018 when they won. They went to the White House in April, not in January. The student-athlete calendar then, what are you doing then? Finals. Spring semester.
Yeah.
Student-athlete calendar work to that benefit.
Again, just bring someone. Like the conversation should have been, that's tough. Is there another day? And if they say, oh, there's no other day, our schedule is busy, obviously, if you're the White House, then you say, okay, we can't bring our full group, but we're going to bring a delegation of Georgia Bulldogs there to be celebrated.
And not
Boom, done.
Exactly. And look, knowing whatever we did the international trip to London when I was with the Titans, the number of players that did not have a passport, right? The number of rookies that come into a college program that have never been on a plane before, the ability to take them to the nation's capital should be above the ability to say, you know what, it's June, and it just doesn't fit into our calendar. Sorry. By the way, the expansion of the college football playoff absolutely does fit into the student-athletes calendar. You know, make that work. That's a weak excuse. And I don't know. I think you're not taking everything into full account whenever you're saying, hey, no, we're going to decline this. Meanwhile, LSU, by the way, with all of the drama, all of the headlines that stirred the pot, they're going. They'll be there with UConn whenever they're celebrating their title, with the men's title. And meanwhile, the Georgia Bulldogs declining the title run here just doesn't fit into the calendar of June.
Well, as a fan of our country, the United States of America, and as a lover of American history, if I'm on that Georgia Bulldogs football team, I am pissed off at my administration for turning that opportunity down. I'd be saying, you're telling me I don't get to go to the White House, get the grand tour, and then meet a sitting president of the United States? That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Everyone that you've ever known, you're watching right now and you're listening, if you know someone who has met a U.S. president and shook their hand, they remember that moment. And now Georgia is robbing that moment of every player on that team and coach on that team because of a student calendar scheduling conflict.
For back-to-back years. The calendar didn't fit the COVID calendar for the administration in 2021 after their title. And now for the second consecutive year after back-to-back championships, they're not going to accept the invitation that was issued on May 3rd.
I'd like to add that their classes start on June 8th. So Georgia, with this football program we've seen, they've got a lot of high-quality student athletes that we can tell are really putting forth the effort and time when it comes to their schoolwork, not having any off-the-field issues. So, the school's just giving them that opportunity to get settled in for that week of summer classes.
Do weekends exist in the state of Georgia?
A Georgia wide receiver, I think, was just arrested, I think, as we were talking.
Maybe that's it. They don't want to take them. They don't want to have anything bad happen at the White House, given all their recent off-the-field incidents.
I mean.
Just a theory.
Yeah, I just looked
at Stetson Bennett's in L.A. now, guys. What are they doing? What do you see?
Well, I was looking up the name of the Georgia wide receiver. I'm not laughing at the charges. Multiple charges, including DUI, was arrested. But his name is Denylon Morissette. And I'm like, if this is like Alanis Morissette, had a child and became a receiver, Denylon Morissette, the receiver.
Isn't that ironic?
Who was arrested. Very ironic.
It's one of the advisors just like, Kirby, we can't risk taking these guys up there.
We
can't even keep them out of trouble down here where we have the law on our side.
Maybe they are looking up and saying, this is just going to put another spotlight on our culture issues here at Georgia. You know who doesn't care about culture issues at Georgia? Georgia fans, because they won back-to-back national championships. They don't care one bit about culture problems.
You know who would go and take the opportunity to put their brand on the pedestal that day? Alabama.
Probably.
Saban did it. He would do it again.
What if TCU?
They would fit that into the...
What if the national runner-up TCU said, we'll go?
What if TCU gets the invite now?
We will now invite every conference champion from this past year to the White House instead.
TCU will join us with the Iowa women's basketball program.
There will be a separate reception with Dr. Jill Biden that will feature all national runner-ups. And she invited the Iowa team as well. Iowa, TCU, San Diego State. Please come on down. I don't even know who the hell won the college baseball national championship or who lost. I don't care enough to know. But whoever the runner-up is, they'll get invited also.
Chad, Ronaldo is already playing for Saudi under a massive contract, and Lionel Messi is headed that way as well. Reportedly agreed to a deal with the Saudi Pro League, and this is through one of the Spanish soccer outlets reporting this. Messi originally requested a staggering, this is front office sports, $662 million per season. But the sides reportedly settled on $386.5 million per season, which would still easily make him the highest paid athlete in the world, ahead of Cristiano Ronaldo, who also plays for the Saudis and is making $220 million per year.
So this reminds me of our old friend John Feinstein of the Washington Post. One time, a long-time guest of our old radio show. And I think, Hutton, he was making more than any other weekly guest in the history of our show. I want to say he was making like $250 to come on for 15, 20 minutes a week per
Other
visit.
than McClain, correct.
Yeah, he was making a good amount. McClain, yes, was making more and probably worth more. But I remember he was making that, and then we left.
Probably.
And we went to OutKick to work for, at the time, Clay Travis, before Clay sold out. Working for Clay Travis. And I remember that I didn't even I told John, we're not going to be needing your services, this and that. And then he waited a couple weeks and saw our announcement because we left, right? There's a 3-month probationary period where we didn't go. And John Feinstein, I promise this plane will land. John Feinstein came to me via text and said, "Oh, I see you've gone to work for that clown Clay Travis who's spreading misinformation about COVID and whatever. You couldn't pay me enough money in the world to join you on that outlet." And I so badly, and I think I just gave it a thumbs up, I so badly wanted to reply and say, how about for $400 a week? This, ladies and gentlemen, is what Lionel Messi has done. Oh, $400 million? What about 600? I would never take your blood money in Saudi Arabia for 400. What about 650 million? Sold. Done. I'll do it. Money talks, BS walks. We have seen that now with the Live Tour. We're seeing it with soccer stars also.
Oh, Chad, they're just growing the sport. Come on.
Oh, we got to grow the sport.
Grow the sport.
It's all about the growth of the sport.
Coming up.
I would have, looking back, Hutton, I'd missed an opportunity with John Feinstein to say, what about 400? And just keep going up? No, never. There's no amount. What about 1,000 per appearance? Until he says yes.
Bob Huggins is down $1 million per year on his contract. He'll be making a little over $3 million per year on a year-to-year contract now, based on comments made on a Cincinnati radio station earlier this week. Clay Travis weighs in on that and more straight ahead on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your shit up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
And people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying, even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk, period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us. We hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thousands of you have. Thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you for listening to this great radio partner as well. Clay Travis will join us momentarily. We'll hit the top topics of the day with him. Chad, we mentioned earlier, Lakers have a chance to close out the Warriors tonight. And the 76ers also with a 3-2 lead over Boston, what's been a great series, where Joel Embiid dominant yet again. And Maxey, what a difference maker. 30 points.
To the Lakers series, though, quickly. John Ireland joined us earlier, voice of the Lakers.
That was awesome.
Fascinating answer, though, about what it would mean if it was 7 versus 8 in the finals. I believe that's what's happening right now. I don't think there's anybody playing better than the Lakers and the Heat. On
7
each
versus
side.
8 would be the Lakers and Heat,
if it
which
was
is crazy.
7 versus 8 in the finals, what that would say for the league. And John gave us a great answer about it would be terrible.
Yeah.
Because what it shows is you don't have to value the regular season at all. These are teams who rested guys, and if that happens,
missed a ton of games.
That's not a great thing.
Clay Travis joins us, founder of OutKick. Clay joins us by phone. Clay, hope you're well, man.
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Hey, man, doing fantastic. What Bob Huggins is keeping his job, and in the landscape of athletics as we have seen it in recent years, Clay, are you surprised based on the live comments he made in the radio show in Cincinnati, WLW 700 earlier this week?
You know, I'm not really surprised. I think in general because of where he coaches in West Virginia, I think the standards and the rules that are in play there are different than they would have been if he was in New York or LA or a place like that. And I think they did exactly kind of what I expected they would do.
We've compared the Tom Brenneman angle to this a lot. I would hope that upon reflection, Tom Brenneman also gets the opportunity to get back what he either resigned from or was fired from due to the off-air comments, at least he thought they were off-air, that were leaked, unlike with Huggins, live on the air with hosts asking questions about Xavier.
I think the biggest difference there is there's lots of play-by-play guys, and there aren't that many high-level coaches, right? And so I think what I always say is as long as your talent exceeds your problems, you're going to be fine. And I think what happened there is, Tom Brenneman was easier to replace than Bob Huggins. I also think, again, the state that he's from matters in a really, really big way, I think, in the larger context. And what I mean by that is you also have to balance, are people going to be angrier at you for doing something or doing nothing? And I think in the state of West Virginia, the answer is people would have been angrier at them for doing something than doing nothing at all, if that makes sense.
Clay, you are someone who sold your media creation to a huge media company. Pat McAfee considering doing the same thing, in talks with ESPN right now. What type of advice would you offer Pat McAfee about going down that avenue?
Some people enjoy being employees. Some people don't. So I don't know how Pat McAfee fits in that criteria. Some people want to own their own shop. They want to have complete control. And I understand that desire. And other people just say, you know what? I'd rather a lot of other people worry about the business aspects to what I'm going to do. I just want to be in charge of the content. I just want to deliver that on a day-to-day basis. So, and then you balance out the money like anything else, right? I think that's probably the biggest decision that he's going to have to make is how much control does he want?
What do you think about the situation that he's currently in where you can be a third-party contractor as a media entity and control the content of your daily show on the side? That sounds like a pretty perfect spot for him to be in right now. Now, granted, I don't know how much money he's getting offered, which would make a big difference in all of this, but what do you think about that setup?
Yeah, look, I think the question is how much control does he have and how badly do they need him? It seems like the Manning brothers with Omaha are building a great deal of value while also having a tremendous amount of freedom. And the biggest challenge that I would say you have to assess there as you sort of look through all of this decision making is, to what extent does he need the money versus what extent does he want just to continue to grow? And I think that's the biggest challenge that anybody has, right? Because a lot of people say, hey, you're going to have total freedom. We want you to do the exact same thing. But the difference now is if he upsets somebody at the NFL or at Major League Baseball, they don't really have a lot of recourse on him. But if he does that now, he doesn't matter as much as the business partners of ESPN do. And so I think that factors in a really big way in terms of the decision making. And then, long term, I think, I don't know if you guys saw my tweet about Disney missing its streaming subscriber numbers by 4 million. ESPN barely grew in streaming. I think the streaming business is really bad. And it's replacing an incredible business in the cable and satellite bundle. By which I mean, if you told me in 5 years almost no one will watch ESPN programming other than the games, I would believe that very much as being the case. And a part of me, if I were Pat McAfee, would say ESPN needs me more than I need ESPN. The most successful person in media today, probably, I would say, is Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan has, I know he does the UFC, but really most of his notoriety now comes from his show that he owns and controls. I think it used to be that the name on the front of the jersey mattered more. I think now, simply put, the name on the back of the jersey matters way more.
Clay, on a scale of 1 to holy bleep, how concerned are you if you're a college athletic director about what has gone on with Alabama baseball and now what's being investigated at Iowa and Iowa State?
Well, I mean, look, I think they're going to have to come up with a new policy, right? Because when everybody is gambling on sports, I think it's kind of crazy to expect that your average college kid who is on a sports team and is probably a big sports fan is not going to be doing the same, right? So I think more so than anything else, you have to be focused on the rule has to be just drilled in as much as possible. You can't gamble on any of your sports. Now, here is where things get so interesting. Much of what happens in sports gambling in terms of being able to make money is based on value. And where does value come from? Information. If you're in a university setting, let's say you are a track athlete, you probably know the basketball and football players, at least to a certain degree, quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you're a student manager, you know whether a star quarterback is going to be responding to ankle treatment or not. You're in practice. You know whether he's going to play. All of that creates tremendous value, and I don't know how you unring the bell in situations such as those, if that makes sense. And I think it's just part and parcel of the larger world we've created, where gambling has always existed. It used to be underground. I would say in some ways this is a sign of how well the regulated marketplace works, that somebody walking into a Ohio sports book and trying to place a bet, I think it was on the Alabama LSU baseball game, set off alarm bells because it was an abnormal wagering pattern. And you got caught in a way that you might not have gotten caught 25 or 30 years ago. When all of this was kind of under the radar and, everybody had a corner bookie and that was the way that bets were placed.
Clay, what did you make of I saw the social media post. You, Laura, Buck, and his lovely wife were attending something, I believe, at West Haven, and a lot of Bud Light was left in the cooler from what I could tell.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. I think this is going to be a major issue with branding for Bud Light. I think it's going to drag on for a long time. I was out at a event here in my neighborhood with a bunch of different bands performing, and I was the MC. And there was an area where there was, beer that was available in coolers for anybody who wanted it. There was a bar as well. And early in the night, I saw it, and I said, okay, Bud Light, Mick Ultra, and Yingling. And then there were some also additional beers, but not as many of those. And I just immediately thought, I bet in this crowd, and there's probably, 1,500, 2,000 people overall at the event that I was attending. I said, I bet that nobody wants to be seen holding a Bud Light. And so I just kind of took video footage for people who haven't seen it of that cooler. And then I said, I bet when I come back later, there were some ranch waters as well, by the way, for people who know that. I bet that only Bud Light is left. And I ended up being right. I came back a little bit over 3 hours later to kind of take a final tally. They hadn't restocked or anything left, anything else. And the only thing that was left at that point basically was Bud Light. So I think if you think about college football tailgates, NFL tailgates, particularly as it pertains to places in the South or traditional red states, I think there is going to be infinitely less Bud Light available at those tailgates than in any years past.
Clay Travis, the OutKick founder, joins us each Wednesday afternoon. Clay, appreciate it, man. We'll be catching up soon.
Thanks, Clay.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. There's Clay Travis. And again, OutKick.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. You get Clay and Buck.
Hutton, we have something in front of us that's not Bud Light.
Yeehaw. And each day we are trying one of the 22 different beers that are on tap for the Craft Brewers Conference. First up is the Blackberry Beret. 4% alcohol. It's made in Johnson City and in Knoxville for Yeehaw Brewing Company. Tart and gushing ripe blackberries, Chad, is what you should be tasting here. Cheers to what's been a fun day.
Maybe a hint of
Yeehaw as well.
Hint of guava in this?
That's blackberry.
That is tart.
That's exactly what you're looking for, though, based on the description.
You know that we're all about honesty on the show, right?
Yeah, that's not your drink.
Not my favorite. Not my
Not your
favorite.
drink.
If you like a sour and something tart, maybe you'll like it. I will not be enjoying that one.
Next up is the result of an easy drinking crisp beer with a complex hop flavor and aroma. Wheat Emotions, 4% alcohol, made right in Knoxville, Tennessee, on behalf of Yeehaw Brewing Company. And cheers to Matt McCloy. Happy birthday, Matt.
Oh, Matt.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Matt.
birthday. By the way, I enjoy any beer that's named after an Aerosmith song, like this one.
Wheat Emotions, perfect name for it. That's a good beer. That's a good beer.
That is very good.
Yeehaw Beer gets it done. And so does this entire week with the Craft Brewers Conference.
Matt, because it's your birthday, by the way, I'm going to save the rest of this beer for you. I will drink the tart one, and you will have this one. That's what I'll do for you on your birthday. Happy birthday, Matt.
Cheers to Matt. And
as I drink the
cheers
rest
to
of
Yeehaw Brewing Company.
I'll save it for you.
The World Awards, seriously, are announced tonight. And let's just say, if certain awards are handed to certain people here, it'll be a throwdown. The sun will rise, and hopefully those that are partying will too.
As we just learned, if these awards were handed out by Clay's neighborhood, Bud Light would not be a recipient of any of those awards.
Chad, tonight, do the Lakers close it out against the Warriors? They're back. Keep in mind,
Two
where they're
letters
playing.
for you, Hutton. N-O.
Yeah. I think
They're back home now. Warriors will get a win.
Warriors win, and you know what? You've got the other series, Knicks and Heat. I think Miami closes it out tonight over New York.
I think so, too. I think we're
New York's
headed
so
to
tired. New York's
an 8
tired.
seed versus a 7 seed in the NBA Finals. I really do.
We are headed to a short break, and then we're back at it tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, right here for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow.